Hello and welcome to yet another video. This is the 13th episode of the story in which Naruto almost dies at Final Valley, but fate still wants him to live. The Shinigami takes an interest in Naruto and makes him its first summoner. Watch Naruto as he shows the world what it's like to summon the Death God. This story comes from Kyubigoku. Make certain to support him, her. Please like and subscribe to show your support. Let's get the show started. Konoha, Hyuga compound. Hinako chuckled lightly to herself while Hanabi pouted. The sounds of fighting could be heard outside of the main house of the Hyuga clan. Hayashi and Hinata had been watching the long spar between Hisashi and Neji. The two had really gotten closer as Neji had told his father nearly all of the things that had happened in his life. It made Hisashi sort of sad that his son had to grow up with an idealism like that, but Hisashi once again found that Neji had been changed by Naruto's actions during the Chunin exams. It was always because of Shikin-sama, is what the father of Neji had always thought. Being alive, Hisashi and Hinako had quickly established themselves back in the Hyuga clan. Most of the Hyuga clan was too happy or surprised to show any skepticism in their appearances. No matter how anyone used the Byakugan to dispel the supposed illusion, it always remained steadfast. Hinako and Hisashi were alive to all of them. Hisashi had once again been named the leader of the side branch, and since he didn't have his caged bird seal anymore, he had been a shining inspiration of sorts for the side branch, but Hisashi had always affirmed that the risk wasn't worth the price. He was a servant of Naruto and the Shinigami. He wouldn't abuse their mercy or their capabilities for his own gain. While the main branch and side branch had no qualms with it, the Hyuga Council had been the skeptics of the things dealing with Hinako. However, as they had found, Hayashi having his wife again by his side had energized him somewhat. He carried out his orders in a more authoritative tone. He never sought the opinion of the council unless it was dire importance. He had also thoroughly apologized to his daughter, Hinata, for the things he had said to her. Hinata had long proven him wrong in what he thought. Hinako had also taken it upon herself to train Hanabi. The youngest Hyuga daughter, not remembering her mother, had taken quickly to Hinako's appearance and warmth. Hanabi was still much stoic like her father, but she was a lot more open in her life. That's why when Hanabi had been outfitting clothes for her mother, she had pouted as her mother laughed. "Ka-sama, it's not funny. This is too big," Hanabi said, and Hinako laughed a little more. Forgive me, Hanabi. You just look so cute," Hinako said, and Hanabi just glanced at the mirror in front of her before shaking her head. She then turned to her mother and slowly wrapped her arms around her. "It's good to have you back, Ka-sama," Hanabi said softly, but Hinako could hear it. She smiled and wrapped her arms around her youngest daughter. "I know, Hanabi. I'm sorry for not being there for you. I really missed you," Hinako said, and Hanabi nodded. The two Hyuga females stayed like that for a little longer, just longing for a little quality time. Hinako allowed a lone tear to fall down her cheek. "It's all thanks to you, Shikin-sama. I can never repay this. Thank you so much," Hinako said, hoping that her words of gratitude could go to Naruto's ears. Outside, Hayashi was watching Hisashi correct Neji on a few of his stances as well as scold him on a few things that he had misinterpreted. Hayashi allowed just the smallest of smiles to come on his face. No one could see it, but that didn't mean that it wasn't there. Most people would have qualms with having their best friend be half their age, but Hayashi knew where friendships could lay and who he could put his trust into. Hayashi didn't offer his trust to just anyone. He also didn't have that many friends. He hung out with the clan heads, but that was a rarity. The first real friend that he possibly had was Naruto. It all came about just from some advice. "Tusama, are you okay?" Hinata asked. "I am fine, Hinata. Also, I want you, Neji and Hanabi dressed for next week or the week after. We're having the Uzumaki clan over for dinner," Hayashi said, and Hinata widened her eyes. "You Uzumaki clan? NNN Naruto-kun's family is a clan? Hinata asked and Hayashi nodded. They were a very prominent clan back in the time of the Shodaime. Had it really surprised you when you learned about Fuka Uzumaki-san as well as Guren Uzumaki-san? They, along with Naruto-san as well as Kushina-san, make up the clan that made Fuinjutsu a legend. It was something that the Shinobi Council discussed a few days ago with Hokage-sama. There were enough of them to form a clan on their own, since they also claim that they found two others, Yuri Uzumaki and Yura Uzumaki. We will be having them over as I wish to extend a goodwill between our clans. For obvious reasons, Hayashi said, looking at Hisashi. Hinata didn't know what that meant, but she just allowed herself to nod. Who's the clan head? Hinata asked and Hayashi shook his head. I am not sure. But if things go as they might, then the clan head will be Kushina-san. Simply because she is the most experienced out of them all, Hayashi said, and Hinata nodded again. I see. Very well, Tusama. I still can't believe it. Naruto-kun's last name is a prominent name, Hinata said, and Hayashi again nodded. Be sure to be on your best behavior when they come. After all, I need to keep my friends close sometimes, Hayashi said, and Hinata widened her eyes as she turned to her father only to see him spin on his heel and leave the lot behind. What does Tusama know about Naruto-kun? Hinata thought to herself, but she couldn't come up with anything and just let the thought dispel as she turned back to seeing Niji scowling while Hisashi, once again, corrected his son's form. The Hyuga clan had gotten a little lively with the return of the side branch leader and the return of the wife of the current clan head. Kumo, Stadium B's eyes darted left and right multiple times as he could vaguely see Naruto's form in the blur of his speed. He's fast, B thought to himself while Naruto grinned. The blonde grabbed his sword. The dust on the field picked up quickly around Kurabi as most of the citizens gulped. He seems even faster than when he faced us, Omoi said, getting a shock from Karui and a glare from Samui. Please, he might be fast, but Kurabi-sensei could stop his blade like it was nothing. Watch, he'll catch it like always and Blondie will get the shock of his life, Karui said with a grin while Omoi shook his head. Samui just remained stoic and continued to watch. Naruto raced around Kurabi and soon he closed his eyes. He channeled his Honshu to his sword. Tsunade and A could see everything clearly and everyone was surprised as Naruto suddenly twisted his foot and launched at Kurabi. Here I come! Naruto shouted as he withdrew his sword from his sheath. Everyone was surprised to see the sword coated in white fire while Naruto held it overhead. He's serious. He's already using the Honshu to try and overpower B-san. Sochi, I sure hope you know what you're doing, Kushina thought, and B's sunglasses shined before he held out his two hands. Fool, you can't cut me. It is you who will be. B stopped as he heard Hachibi's voice. B. Dodge it. Don't touch that fire. Hachibi shouted. B instinctively reacted and stopped his motion to block Naruto's sword with his two hands. The blonde slammed his sword, full of Honshu, against the ground and the ground began to split under the pressure while Naruto narrowed his eyes. B leaned back, away from Naruto while people saw a large slash across the ground. What was that? Why didn't B-sama stop him? Someone asked. Samui raised an eyebrow while Karui gripped the railing. Omoi let loose a breath that he had been holding. All the Heineken team and their guests, who had been watching the act, did also. They could feel their breath stop just for a second. I don't understand. What was that fire? Kakashi asked, but there wasn't a response. Kushina shivered, but she didn't voice her opinion. She just had to trust that her son knew what he was doing and wouldn't do stupid things. Yeah, she really had to worry now. Naruto picked his sword out of the ground and glared at Kurabi. I expected to at least get the Honshu into his body before the fight began. He'd get weaker and then I could do a little more. Guess you were right, Kyubi, Naruto said mentally, and Kyubi snorted. He knew he was right. He was rarely ever wrong about things like this. Just be on your guard, brat. It's not over, Kyubi said, and Naruto nodded. He took his mother's stance and folded his arms. He seemed to be thinking something over in his mind before he snickered. Your fire is quite bad. But I dodged it easily, so the attack itself is sad, yeah. B said, and Naruto cracked his neck. He raced at B fast, beginning to blur left and right. B watched his movements carefully before he flicked his wrist. Naruto was forced to stop as he noticed a pencil filled with Raiton chakra coming to his face. The blonde gasped and swerved to the side before B threw another one. Naruto jumped over it and grinned. It was only when he saw a shadow over the ground that he widened his eyes. He looked up and he noticed B overhead. B sent a kick at Naruto's face and the blonde came to defend his upper body. He brought his sword up, but he underestimated B's strength. The Eight Tails Jinchuriki quickly kicked Naruto's sword from his hands and everyone gasped as the sword went sailing through the air and lodged itself into the side of the wall. Naruto growled at the action before he raced to get his sword. He tried to move as fast as he could, but he turned his head and he noticed B rushing right after him. I have in my sight. Now I will go like the killer bee and take flight. B shouted as he added chakra to the soles of his feet and jumped into the air. He landed on the wall next to Naruto's sword while the blonde cursed. Shit, Naruto said. He's already been disabled of his sword. Sochi has one of the firmest grips that I have ever taught. If he can have his sword knocked away, then that speaks volumes of B-san's strength, Kushina said. Yugao and Mikoto glanced towards Kushina and seemed confused before they turned back to the stadium. Sasuke, can you follow? Kakashi asked. His Sharingan was visible as was Sasuke's. The Uchiha's eyes had been moving all over the place, but he had just the slightest bit of trouble. Just within the range of the stadium. Naruto's got his work cut out for him, Sasuke said. Yuri and Yura held their hands together as B took Naruto's sword. He landed to the ground and swirled it around in his hands. Ha! That guy is no match for B-sensei. He's so gonna get his ass kicked, Karui proclaimed. Darui, Sure and Mabui continued to watch on impassively while a certain councilwoman was just praying for B to win. Naruto narrowed his eyes while B looked the blonde's sword over, up and down. B took it and held it back. He then smirked and launched himself at Naruto. The Kyubi Jinchuriki quickly assumed his taijutsu stance that his mother taught him and Kurabi attempted a slash at him. Naruto jumped over it and sent his leg at the Eight Tails container's face. B blocked it easily with a smirk, but he then coughed as he was slammed in the stomach. He looked down and he noticed a second Naruto grinning at him. People were shocked as the second Naruto grabbed the original and threw him back. Naruto flipped through the air while the Bunshin sparred with B. Oh, so Little Nine has his tricks. He can do Seal-less Bunshin, B thought as he stabbed the clone, dispelling it. He looked back at Naruto overhead. Naruto grinned before he slammed his hands together. Fujikaze, I'm going to need to borrow your sword, Naruto said in thought, and everyone noticed Naruto's hands glow before he clenched them and retracted the right hand. Everyone gasped as another sword came from his hands out of nowhere. It's blackened metal against the sun, making it shimmer. Naruto landed on the ground with Fujikaze's blade in hand. B glared at the blonde while people seemed to be in shock. Where did he learn to do that? Can I do that also? Kushina wondered to herself. It had to have been a new ability of sorts because Kushina had never known if she could do that. Then again, she didn't have summons like Naruto did, but she trained extensively in the Honshu power with her son. Where did he get that sword? It came out of nowhere, Omoi said. Darui seemed confused and so did Sure. Mabui held it together better, but she was surprised as well. There is no fucking way, Karui said. A narrowed his eyes and turned to Tsunade. The two Kage shared a glare, but Tsunade broke it first as she closed her eyes and allowed a smirk to come across her face. A snorted and looked back at the field. Yo 9. That's not fair. How did you get a sword from your hands? Did you pull it out of your glands? B asked. Naruto sweat dropped and shook his head. Naruto took his stance with Fujike's blade, which was a little heavier than his own, and chuckled. Trust me, you don't want to know, Naruto said, and he charged at B. He wanted his sword back. B gripped Naruto's own blade as the two charged. The populace watched as white streaks of light clashed against each other. The sounds of metal hitting metal were starting to ring through the air. B sent Naruto's sword towards his face, but Naruto blocked it from overhead and quickly delivered a sweep kick. He managed to get B's feet and grinned at his accomplishment before he saw B's left hand land on the ground and he swirled his feet. He kicked Naruto in the jaw, sending the blonde skidding back. Naruto coughed and glared as B hopped back up top. He still held Naruto's sword and the blonde growled. You know I don't like it when people take my sword. My Ka-chan bought that for me, Naruto said, and B smiled. Then try and take it back. Do it or I will put your head on a rack, B said, and Naruto didn't take the time to try and analyze those words. He just settled for a nod of his head. He launched himself at B in a flash of speed. B brought his sword back while Naruto swiftly closed the distance between them both. Fujike's blade at his back, he swung it at B. His sword went swinging for his neckline and Naruto smirked, expecting a dodge, but he gasped as B grabbed the sword with his fingertips. Naruto widened his eyes before he gasped further as B stabbed Naruto with his own blade. The crowd gasped and some feared the worst. Yuri and Yura winced at the sight while Sasuke and Mikoto widened their eyes. Yugao and Kakashi turned back to Kushina, who was stable, for lack of a better term. Kamachi remained stoic, but a small bead of sweat fell from her face showing how nervous she was, well until B's voice rang through the place. Yo, where is 9? He's fool to not be this fine, B said, and Naruto chuckled. Che, guess I couldn't keep it up. See ya. Kai, Naruto shouted and the field exploded, causing to dust picked up. No one could see anything. Bakudan Bunshin. He's talented, Samui thought to herself. Next to her was Atsui and he smiled at such an action. This guy, he's got a hot soul in him, Atsui said with a grin. No one could see anything in the cloud of dust. The only thing that they could see was Naruto's original sword flying through the air. It went towards the wall before a hand grabbed the handle. Naruto smiled at the familiar feeling of his blade before turning back. He took Fujike's sword and quickly dematerialized it into nothing, or rather sending it back to his swordsman. You think it worked? Naruto asked his partner. PSSSH, no way in hell, Kyubi said, and Naruto sighed with a nod of his head. As the dust cleared, Naruto could see B standing in the middle of it, perfectly fine. The blonde jumped down to the ground and sighed. Man, you're tough, Takewasan, Naruto said, and he reacted quickly as B took out another pencil. However, Naruto raised an eyebrow as B also took out a notepad. He began to write some things down in it as he mumbled. Naruto's sweat dropped, but this gave him the time to think. Oi B, what are you doing? Now isn't the time to write. Hachibi said, but B ignored him. He continued to mumble as he wrote inside of it. He then looked up at Naruto and closed his book. Hey, I'll feelin' the beat of time. I just wrote the baddest rhyme, thank you, B said, and Naruto snorted. For you I will put on a play. B raised his hands and grabbed the swords on his body. And now it is you who will feel the sting that I lay, B said, and threw his swords into the air. Naruto watched them go up and smiled. What have you got for me, Takewasan? Naruto asked. He immediately regretted those words as B caught one blade, 2 blades, 3, 4, Kushina blinked, Kakashi widened his visible eye. 5, 6, Yugao, Sasuke and Mikoto raised their eyebrows and Tsunade glared at a grinning ape. Yuna and Yuri seemed confused by the action, but B's students were more than ready for it. He might be good if he's got B-sama to resort to that, Sure said, getting a nod from Darui. Samui, Omoi and Karui had grinned, but Karui's was more obvious. Finally, and lastly, 7. 7 blades came from 7 different parts of B's body as he carefully held them in place. What the hell is that? Naruto shouted and Kyuubi glared. Hell, even Fujikaze, inside of the sword, was amazed at such a thing. Now it seems you had better pick up a file, for Kurabi-sama's awesome Kenjutsu style, B said to him. Naruto didn't even have the time to take the newest form in before B launched himself into the air. Naruto readied himself as B slammed his body into him. All of the swords flew against Naruto as the blonde rushed to block them all. He jumped in the air, slid across the ground, parried each shot, but B was keeping him on edge and Naruto couldn't follow them all. The clashing of metal was apparent to everyone as B sent 3 swords at Naruto's face. The blonde slid under the attack before B noticed his leg grabbed. He turned and saw another Naruto grinning as the original blonde backflipped away. He panted and wiped his chin from his sweat. B hopped on his free leg and kicked the Naruto clone into the air. It backflipped against his swords before it drew its own sword and clashed with B. The Naruto clone continued to fight as Naruto rushed at B. The 2 Narutos worked together and swung their swords against B's as multiple streaks of light could be seen. Naruto delivered a sweep kick and Naruto clone launched a punch, but both were blocked as they showed surprise in their eyes. Both immediately noticed lightning and Naruto jumped back, but the Naruto clone wasn't so lucky as B's body flared in Raiton chakra, electrocuting the clone and causing it to dispel. The memories went to Naruto and the blonde shook his head. B turned around to Naruto while the blonde growled. "You're just full of surprise, aren't you?" Naruto asked and B smirked. The two seemed to be having their fun, but Naruto knew the seriousness of the situation. He had to get serious about this or it would be Kamachi's head, literally. "So are you 9? But you won't be me unless you are more than fine," B said, getting another chuckle from Naruto. "Then I'll kick it up a notch," Naruto said as he added chakra to his feet and jumped into the air. B watched him go before Naruto brought his sword back and, using his centrifugal force, quickly spun around. Yuzu no Fukushu, Dai Uzumaki Ikari, Whirlpool Revenge, Great Maelstrom Rage, Naruto shouted and everyone watched as out of nowhere water sprayed from his sword and danced around the blonde's body before he sent it scattering into water missiles as they converged on B. Kurabi dodged to the side of one and rolled against the other, but he wasn't fast enough and was forced to block 3 of them. The field exploded in water, but Kushina was shocked as Naruto grabbed his sword and held it overhead. "He's going to use the second of the 5 stances?" "Sochi, you're overdoing it," Kushina said mentally. For some reason, Naruto could hear her thoughts and turned to her direction. "I have to," Naruto said, sending a signal to her. His sword cackled heavily as a seal appeared over it. Yuzu no Fukushu, Raimei no Kyoda, Whirlpool Revenge, Furious Thunder Swirls, Naruto yelled and everyone could see that Naruto swung his sword over and over. With each slash a lightning swirl came out of it and slammed into the ground. "Naruto had Raiton? I thought he only had Futon," Kakashi said. "He doesn't have Raiton. It's one of the 5 stances of Yuzu no Fukushu. They are stances that are all about sealing the 5 elements into a person's weapon. With each seal, once it's released then they can call that element to their aid. Sochi has all 5, but he's only ever used water and fire. He's used the 3rd seal. I just hope that he doesn't have to use all 5. If he does, then," Kushina let that go off as Yugao looked on worriedly. Sasuke narrowed his eyes and turned to Yuna who had gripped his hand tightly. He just squeezed it and looked back. Naruto panted as he suddenly stopped his assault. He allowed the dust to dispel. He grinned at his accomplishment, however that stopped as he began to choke. The entire stadium did so as B came out of the wreckage. "Your techniques are tight, but they won't help you win this fight," B said, and Naruto gripped his sword. He was ready for anything at this moment. Well, that's what he thought anyway. B grabbed one of his swords and raced towards Naruto. The blonde ran towards his Jinchuriki in arms and the two clashed blades against each other. Naruto struggled against Kurabi's weight as it sent him to the ground. B raised an eyebrow before he charged his sword with Raitun chakra. Naruto widened his eyes as it began to slice through his sword like a knife through butter. Naruto cursed before he added his wind element to his sword. The blade immediately stopped and Naruto kicked B in the chest, sending him away. B resumed his seven-sword style and Naruto dusted himself off. He looked at his sword and closed his eyes. His blade slowly began to repair itself, much to the surprise of everyone. "Your shinobi is talented, Hokage Dano," A said, and Tsunade gleamed at the praise of Naruto directed at her. As Naruto finished letting his sword heal, he looked up. "Damn it, it's a battle of will. He's not using Hachibi's chakra because I won't use yours. What do you think?" Naruto asked, and Kyubi looked up. "I think you're going to need some type of plan against him or you're fucked," Kyubi said, getting a nod from Naruto. He looked at beholding his seven swords and narrowed his eyes. It was too hard to actually fight against all of those. He didn't have the Sharingan, and even with something like that, it was still impossible. He closed his eyes for a few minutes. B waited for Naruto to start and narrowed his eyes behind his glasses. "Whatcha thinkin', little nine?" B thought, and suddenly Naruto opened his eyes wide and shouted. "Guys! Throw me your swords!" Naruto shouted to the members of his team. Everyone blinked as Naruto turned to them. They turned to each other and raised their eyebrows in confusion. What's he blathering about? Is he trying to mimic B-sensei? Impossible. It took B-sensei years to come up with that style. No way can that guy just mimic it, Karui said, snarling. Omoi and Samui were interested. Darui had his eyes preoccupied with looking through the crowds while Sasuke shouted. "Why? Just trust me. I need to borrow them," Naruto yelled. Everyone wondered what the blonde would come up with. A few Kumo shinobi chuckled at the thought, and this irked some of them. Kushina unstrapped her sword, and so did Mikoto. "Why, you're not serious, are you?" Kakashi asked them, and Kushina shrugged her shoulders. Mikoto just smiled while Sasuke sighed heavily. He stood and unstrapped his sword while Yugao did the same. Yuri and Yura blinked, and so did Yuna. Kakashi just chuckled and unstrapped his father's sword. The members of Heineken threw their swords into the air and towards Naruto's form. "Sochi, what are you planning?" Kushina thought, and everyone could see Naruto's face gleam. The swords were mere feet away from him, and Naruto nodded. Quickly everyone was amazed as white chains came from his back. They wrapped around the handles to each blade and held them behind Naruto's back. Everyone gasped and murmured while he gripped the seat of his chair. The Heineken team gasped, and so did Karui as she dropped to her seat. Samui narrowed her eyes, and Omoi was left speechless. Naruto took his sword while his chains held the swords of his teammates. They fanned out, and Naruto smiled. "Now then, let's try this again, Dadabayo." Naruto charged at B, and B jumped into the air. They clashed against each other, and Naruto swayed his chains with the swords against B's own as sparks went off each sword. The two blurred against the ground as they clashed their swords. Naruto swung one of the chain-attached swords to B's feet, but B blocked it with the one furthest to his leg. Naruto swung three more at him, but B stopped those also. He's using the chains to grab the swords instead of his hands. "Ingenious," Yugao said, getting a smile from Kushina. As the sparks flew against the place, B and Naruto didn't let up as they even tried to mix their taijutsu into it. Naruto launched a punch at B's face and B sent a kick to Naruto's stomach. Both blocked with their blades as they continued in their assault. Naruto gritted his teeth to the pressure as his legs switched. Naruto unconsciously added Kyuubi's chakra to the mix as his whiskers became more defined. B noticed this and narrowed his eyes. Now was the time to start. They both jumped away from each other. B slightly looked up at Naruto's increased breathing. He noticed Naruto raise the swords into the air as they were covered in Honshu. Honshu, Shometsu, power of life, annihilation, Naruto hollered as he slammed the swords on the ground. Immediately everyone gasped as white fire exploded on the field, forcing them to cover their eyes. B could only look on as the fire came his way, engulfed him and exploded. "Brat, calm down. You're getting too excited," Kyuubi said, and Naruto widened his eyes. He took a deep breath and nodded. As the fire dispelled, Naruto widened his eyes. Kyuubi did also, and so did everyone else. "This chakra." "No, B-sama. Don't," someone shouted, and the Heineken team widened their eyes. Naruto glared, but he wasn't ready as he heard a shout. "Rariato, lariat," B shouted as he slammed Naruto across the neck. Naruto widened his eyes and coughed. A stood to his feet while Yuri and Yura widened their eyes. Karui, Samui, and Omoi seemed shocked while Shur and Darui looked pale. Mabui dropped her notepad to the ground while Kumo Shinobi fell to their seats. The civilians murmured at the sight. Yuna shivered, and so did Rin, Haku, Zabuza, Mikoto, Gaara, Hizashi, and Hinako. They all looked towards Kumo and a chill ran through their spines. "Shikin-sama," they all thought in unison. B had rammed his arm through Naruto's neck, crushing his windpipe. B sent Naruto flying into the wall with a heavy crazy and grinned. "Wee-ee!" he shouted. Tsunade quickly stood up fast, and so did the members of Heineken. "Oi! B, you weren't told to go that far." Hachibi scolded. B's body was coated in red churka and 8 tails. He had used his Jinchuriki state to survive the fires of Naruto's power. However, the realization came into B's head as Naruto slumped to the ground, his breathing heavy. Soon multiple shinobi arrived on the scene and Kamachi shivered. Not for her life, but for Naruto's own life. "B, I didn't authorize you to use that technique here. You'd better hope he lives," A said, and B just looked down as Naruto coughed. Tsunade placed her hands on Naruto's chest and her hands glowed green. Kakashi and Yugao looked pale while Mikoto seemed sad. Sasuke growled and Kushina just looked nervous. "You can come back, right, Sochi? Please tell me you can come back," Kushina said mentally. Tsunade's hands glowed brightly and the stadium was silent. Clouds started to appear and rain started to fall. "Come on, Naruto. Please don't die on me," Tsunade said. "What's wrong with him?" Sasuke asked. "His neck has been dislocated and the lower half of his body has been shattered." "I don't know, but we have to get him out of here," Tsunade as Naruto's breath became ragged. He coughed blood and Tsunade fell to her knees. "Not you too. Please, Naruto, please tell me that contract wasn't a joke. I saw them, remember, Dan and Nawaki. Please don't go and leave like this," Tsunade said. Kushina frowned as she looked at this. She had to trust her son's word, but seeing this just made her heart shatter. "Ne-chan, is something wrong with Nissan?" Yuri asked, and Yura just gripped Yuri's hand. "No, Yuri, they are just worried about him," Yura said as tears stained her dress. "Man, he at least put up a good fight. I wouldn't be surprised if he was dead now," Karui said, and that got Samui to get up. She grabbed her arm and cursed at the burning. "It's hot," she said. Her brother, Atsui, did the same. Karui scratched the nape of her neck and Shur touched his arm. Komachi placed her hand to her chest and fell to her knees. Guren and Fuka groaned as their Uzumaki seals lit up. Karen cursed and poured water over the seal on her leg. Yura and Yuri tried to soothe their own burning and so did Kushina. The spirits gathered and, known to them, but no one else, Naruto's body was pure white as his heart began to stop. No, Naruto, damn you. Don't go, don't. Leave us yet. Tsunade said and Naruto's chest stopped rising and falling. It was perfectly still. Darui and Mabui remained silent while B just looked down. Why did he leave with no frown? I do not think that 9 is down. Yeah, B said in his thoughts. Meanwhile, in complete darkness, Naruto laid still and Kyubi sat in front of him. The demon fox looked at his container and shook his head. Really? You survived an arm through the chest from a damn lightning strike from the damn Uchiha and you go out like this? Sheesh, Kyubi said. Naruto opened his eyes and groaned. Man, that was fast. What the hell happened? Naruto asked and Kyubi snorted. You died, brat. Don't act like you can't see what's going on outside, Kyubi said and Naruto could indeed see what was going on. The blonde groaned and leaned up. So, what now? Naruto asked. Don't go looking at me. We're fucking dead, the last round up, the end of the line, pushin' up daisies, finishing the last leg of the race, entering the great beyond, finding the, oh shut up already I get it. Damn, I didn't expect that at all. Maybe I should have called Shin sooner, Naruto said and Kyubi snorted. Now that I think about it, why didn't you just stop time again? I know you tried to say the words before he fucking destroyed your throat, Kyubi said and Naruto sighed with a nod of his head. He leaned back until he and Kyubi noticed the seal on his right hand light up intensely. Both blocked their eyes until the light faded. They squinted and Naruto gasped as Shin appeared in front of him, his steely gaze as fearsome as ever. Hey, Shin, Naruto said nervously. Shin folded his arms and Naruto stood to his feet. Well, it was bound to happen sooner or later, Shirkan. You have experienced death. You are 100% truly dead. Though I doubt that if you didn't have me then you would have lived a lot longer. Not a good thing, is it? The Shinigami asked and Naruto rubbed his throat. No, it's not. Kami, that fucking hurt like shit. But I can't go just yet. I have things that I must do there. Shin, I'm sorry, but now I need your help. You and Kyubi. The three of us together. I want you to help me take down this asshole, Naruto said glaring at B who was folding his arms. Kyubi narrowed his eyes and so did the Shinigami. Shin took out his beads and held them before Naruto. He held out his hand and Naruto offered Shin his sword. Do you remember what I told you? Shin asked and Naruto nodded. The death law. All life is subject to death. It is the fate of all to this single path towards the next plane. You are the realm and I am the carrier. My burden is heavy, your power's a privilege. I honor my summon and my summon honors me. I ask for the Shinigami's mercy. Your summoner wishes to reclaim the lost fire of his soul, Naruto spoke formally. Shin nodded and folded his arms. And what is your tribute? What will you do with this new life? Shin asked and Naruto balled his fists and slammed it to his chest. I will use this life to become all that I know I can be. To protect my team, to bring order to the laws of death. My tribute is, my sword. My sword is the tool through which you allow me to bring this change. It is yours before it is mine, Shin. Let it be mine and let me find the path that I seek to know. Dadabayo, Naruto said bowing. Shin took Naruto's sword and stabbed him in the stomach. Naruto and Kyubi coughed as Shur spoke. Spirits gathered around Naruto and one by one, they fell to their knees. You are worthy. You are capable. You, who understand death's law and follows it as your own. You are no longer a Shirkan, death soul. You will be known by me, Kyubi, yourself, all spirits, your Valve and those you've resurrected, as Shikyo, Death Lord. Bring about the order that your heart wishes. Go Shikyo, Shin said, and Naruto saw white fire trace his seal from his stomach all around his body before it rested on the seal on his right hand. Unlocking could be heard and Naruto turned his head. He saw 3 of Kyubi's 9 orange tails vanish. In their place were 3 pure white tails and Kyubi flailed them around. You have our help, brat. Never forget it, Kyubi said, holding out his fist to Naruto. The blonde widened his eyes at Kyubi and the spirits rejoiced as they shouted, Shikyo-sama. Naruto heard it all and smiled. He took his sword back and he brought his fist to Kyubi's own. Not going to eat me when I eventually let you out? Naruto asked and Kyubi snorted as he offered a smile. Even should the world fall asunder. Kyubi no Yoko will fight at your side, Kyubi said, and Naruto nodded with a bow of his head. The spirits began to fade and so did Shin. Naruto turned around and grinned. Time to step it up, Dadabayo. Naruto shouted in a deep voice as the darkness turned white. Everyone remained silent and looked over Naruto's face. Soon lightning poured from the sky and the seals on Kushina's body lit up. Everyone gasped and so did Kushina. She looked left and right before they all saw Naruto's chest rise and fall. He's not dead, Tsunade said. Darui and A widened their eyes while Sasuke smirked. Mikoto smiled and so did Kakashi. Yugao breathed a large sigh of relief and before long everyone noticed red Honshu form around Naruto. The blonde stood to his feet as 1 tail appeared, 2 tails, 4, 6, 7, 9. All 9 tails from Kyubi's Honshu appeared and B was too surprised as Naruto cocked his fist back. That hurt. Naruto shouted as he slammed B in the face, sending him flying. The crowd gasped and people began to look in Naruto's direction. He survived. That's impossible. It should have killed him, Karui said, and those who felt the previously burning sighed in relief as it was gone. Tsunade grabbed Naruto into a hug and cried. Naruto, I thought, she said, and Naruto smiled. Sorry about that, Bachan. I'm fine. I promise, resume the fight, Naruto said, and Tsunade looked at him. She looked over his body and he was just as fine as can be. Everything in Tsunade told her to say no, but her mouth agreed to his request. She nodded and turned around. Resume Raikage Dano, she said with a smile. A blinked, but then nodded as others began to jump away. Sasuke slapped Naruto's shoulder and snorted. Asshole, Sasuke said, and Naruto chuckled as Sasuke left. Yugao and Mikoto smiled and backed away, as did Kakashi. Naruto turned back to his mother and she smiled. Have fun? She asked, and Naruto got a yelp from his mother as he lightly tapped her firm ass. Just getting started, Ka-chan, Naruto said, and Kushina shivered from her son's touch before she jumped away. The field was barren and people began to sit back down. B emerged from the rubble and rubbed his jaw. He's different from before. That punch he sent me just got my mouth sore. I'd better get serious on this fool before I look like a tool, B thought, and jumped down. He folded his arms and he noticed the 9 tails of Naruto's Kyubi chakra flowing around his back. Naruto felt good. He felt wonderful. He'd never felt so much harmony with his partner before. Naruto knew he couldn't transform or do something stupid like that, but this was just as good for him. It seems you are ready to return to the fight. I think it's time that we show all of our might, yeah. B said, and Naruto agreed. You're right, no more holding back, Naruto said as he bit his thumb and traced it over his seal and slammed it. Kuchi-ose no jutsu, Naruto said, and the seal on his hand glowed brightly. It shined over the field and B was forced to cover his eyes from his sunglasses. The light faded and everyone looked around. What did he summon? Omoi asked, and instantly everyone felt the temperature drop. A Ki washed over the field enough to make a few civilians pass out. Tsunade squirmed and even had a bead of sweat. It was strange as it wasn't affecting those that Naruto didn't want it to affect. Kamachi felt so much relief as she watched Naruto get up. She didn't have most of her memories, but her sight of something like that had sparked something in her. While they couldn't see it, Naruto grinned and turned around. Right behind him was Shin staring at B, who was looking for the source of the heavy Ki. Ready to give a show, Shin, Kyubi? Naruto asked, and both beings nodded. Naruto dropped down and B quickly focused back on Naruto. The blonde blurred and with a mighty roar appeared in front of B as he brought his claw back. B covered his body, but Naruto slashed forward and a shock wave poured through the field as B was sent flying. He was launched out of the field and Naruto smiled. He held out his hand and spoke. Jikuyugami no Jutsu, Naruto said, and the purple portal appeared. He imaged where he wanted to go as he and B disappeared from view. People widened their eyes to what they had just seen in front of them. Where did they go? Omoi asked, and people looked left and right. There is a huge power source to the south, someone called out. The shinobi quickly raced off, leaving the civilians in the stadium in confusion. With Naruto and B, the portal opened and B was sent flying out as they both landed in front of his house. Naruto stepped out and grinned while B stood to his feet. Nice work, 9. You might not have full control, but you be lookin' so fine. I respect you, bro. B rapped and Naruto nodded. You too, Teikoasan. Let's finish this, Naruto said, and B agreed. They both blurred out of sight and shock waves could be heard as Naruto and B traded blow after blow. Both were blurs all around, but Naruto's eyes could keep up. Why was that? Because of his new ability. Pakura, Dan, do you see him? Naruto asked. Pakura and Dan, who looked left and right, floating in the air, nodded. Naruto closed his eyes and skidded across the ground. B appeared and Naruto opened his eyes back. He gasped. He was seeing B from two different angles. Pakura's and Dan's. Your next gift, Shikio. Rei no Yokan, Spirit's foresight. Anything your spirits see, you see so long as you channel Honshu through your eyes. Welcome to the next level, Shin said, and Naruto nodded. Through Pakura, Naruto saw B race to him. Naruto blocked with his tails, but B slammed into his body and Naruto coughed as he was launched against the ground. He had left his sword behind at the stadium and he wouldn't retrieve it. Naruto rolled across the ground and growled as he launched himself back at B. He held out his hand and B began to jump away, but chains appeared and held out his arms and legs. Naruto closed the distance between them and hollered. Rasengan, Naruto shouted as he slammed his blue sphere into B's chest. It started to grind his body, but Naruto watched as B's body turned dark red. His face vanished and his body turned into the dark form of the Hachibi. The Rasengan sent him flying, but B managed to absorb the blow off a mountain cliff as he went into the air. In his left arm was overtaken by a large skeleton figure with horns and all. B grinned while Naruto widened his eyes. Shin now. Naruto said, and Shin quickly took his beads and held out his purple hands. He swallowed one bead and his eyes glowed white. He then slammed Naruto's body and the blonde quickly took his fist and brought it back. B cocked his fist back and Naruto roared as his entire fist glowed in white fire. Rariato, B shouted and Naruto roared as his fist slammed into B's skeletal figure. A large explosion came over the entire field as Naruto was sent flying. He crashed into the ground and coughed blood against his torso. He snarled and he noticed B quickly charging for him. Kyubi, we're going to try something new, Naruto said in thought, and Kyubi nodded while Naruto got to his feet and jumped to the side looking to dodge. However, Bee noticed it and Naruto was surprised as an octopus tentacle came from Bee and grabbed his waist. Naruto cursed as Bee launched at him. Kokunyugami no Jutsu, Naruto shouted and time stopped. Bee was inches from his face and Naruto quickly got out of his grip. The blonde dashed away to a safer place before he fell to his knees. He cursed and gripped his right arm. Shikio, I cannot remain at your side like then when you are using both Kyuubi and myself at the same time. If you're doing something then do it now, Shin said and Naruto nodded. The blonde looked left and right multiple times before he noticed time resume. Bee widened his eyes as he saw his tentacle with an absent Naruto. He quickly located Naruto not far off. With his speed, he dashed for the blonde and Naruto did the same. Oi Bee, you're pushing it for this brat. You're still holding back. The boy has gotten serious. It seems that Kyuubi has accepted him if only for this moment, Hachibi spoke getting a nod from Bee. And say goodbye blonde for I will give you the eternal lullaby, Bee said as he brought his fist back. Naruto was ready to stop time again, but he gasped at the extra burst of speed that Bee put on as he slammed Naruto across the neck again. The blonde winced and was sent flying while Bee smirked. Wee, Bee yelled. Naruto skipped across the waters below before he crossed his fingers. I won't let Kamachi-chan die. I'll keep up this pace, Naruto said and quickly two tails disappeared and orange tails of Kyuubis popped out and blocked Naruto from the mountain behind him. Naruto panted and the Shinigami began to fade. It's on you now Shikio, Shin said and faded. Naruto nodded and turned back. He only had a little bit of time before he gasped as Bee continued his rapping. Yo 9 you are so fine. Now I won't be holding back. It's your ideals I'll obliterate, then you I shall annihilate. My true form of the Jinchuriki, Bee said and Naruto watched as Bee was covered by his 8 tails. Smoke raised up and covered his form. This chakra, this is, Naruto's fears were answered as he gazed up at a giant octopus bull. It's a monster and one that you will never encounter, Bee said while he turned into the complete form of the Hachibi. Naruto growled and balled his fists. Damn it, I can't match up to that. Naruto shouted. The 8 tails of Hachibi thrashed around violently and Bee grinned. Say goodbye little 9. Bee yelled. Naruto and Kyuubi looked up at the large figure. Kyuubi, I could use all the damn help that you have to offer at the moment, Naruto said. Kyuubi snarled at what was in front of him. He knew that Kurabi was by far a better Jinchuriki than Naruto, but he had never planned on something like that. Naruto had faced Ichibi and while Kyuubi had to acknowledge that, Hachibi was a world superior to the One Tail. Naruto had his team when he faced Sanbai and he used Shin to seal half of Shin into the youngest Uzumaki. Kyuubi was lost for the moment. Kit, I'm going to need some time, Kyuubi said and Naruto growled, but nodded. Bee sent his tails rushing at Naruto's small body. The 9-tailed Naruto quickly blurred from view and jumped into the air. As Bee's tails slammed against the ground, Naruto landed on one of them and raced along its long structure. Naruto continued to run along this tails before Bee raised his large hand and slammed it down. Naruto jumped away from it and into the air. Naruto quickly summoned an army of Kage Bunshin and his 9 tails grabbed them all by their legs and Naruto launched them all towards Hachibi. Hachibi and Bee looked up while they saw Naruto slam his hands together. Kai! Naruto shouted and the Kage Bunshin rained down against Hachibi's form as they exploded one after the other. Hachibi glared at Naruto before he swung 5 of his tails at Naruto's body. The blonde quickly reacted and 2 Honshu tails disappeared and 2 of Kyuubi's orange tails appeared as they covered Naruto's body. His maturity as a Jinchuriki had improved him over the fight and Naruto knew this, but he had used up a good portion of Honshu and it was running him dry. The tails slammed against Naruto's body and sent him flying. Naruto managed to maneuver himself through the air and landed against the ground. His clothes were ragged and his body was burning. "Damn it, we gotta try it," Naruto said, and Kyubi knew what he was talking about. "The ratio is 10 to 6, brat." "Remember that," Kyubi said, and Naruto nodded. He quickly opened his hands as his 9 tails came together around his body as the tips pointed to the center. B and Hachibi found Naruto a distance away as the explosion stopped. Naruto cursed before he summoned 10 clones. They each raced towards the Bija Jinchuriki. B fought with them all while Naruto growled. Come on," Naruto said, and the Jikuyugami appeared in front of him. The tips of Naruto's tails wrapped around the outer edges of the portal while Naruto held his hands out. Shape manipulation. Control it. It's just like a Rasengan or a Bijadama, Naruto thought, and the Jikuyugami slowly began to compress into a smaller ball-shaped portal. Naruto strained his Honshu to control it while Hachibi knocked a clone back. The clone dispelled, and that startled Naruto. The Jikuyugami dispersed and Naruto cursed. "I can't do it yet. I haven't had the time to practice," Naruto said mentally. "Brat. Watch out," Kyubi alerted hastily. Naruto looked up from his defeated progress as he noticed Hachibi open his mouth. The Bijadama began to form as it expanded, collapsed and compressed. Naruto cursed and, with all his speed that he could muster, he dashed away while B roared and launched a wave of pure chakra in Naruto's direction. It destroyed everything in its path while Naruto tried to get away from it. Something Naruto learned about his Kokonyugami was that it had a time interval. He couldn't perform 2 except within 2 minutes of each other. He couldn't stop time just yet. As the wave appeared closer and closer to his form, the light overtook Naruto's body as he widened his eyes. With Heineken, everyone was racing towards the 2 large power sources, and A was progressively moving faster. It had been the largest chakra source that he had ever known. It couldn't be possible. B wouldn't use that transformation for just a simple fight, would he? Oh, of course he would. He was just that much of an idiot. The sun began to go down and everyone was getting increasingly worried. As they collected their swords and Naruto's, Heineken raced to their comrade's side with the best speed that they could attain. They could hear explosions in the far distance and even roaring of some kind. It irked them all, but they didn't lose pace. "Is Naruto alright?" Yugao asked, and everyone looked grave. "As far as I'm concerned, he shouldn't be fighting after nearly dying. There could be some lasting damage to his body," Kakashi said. Everyone glanced to him, but Mikoto's the one who spoke. "But the instant that he does that, they'll kill her," Mikoto said, and everyone stopped. Kushina had told them of Kamachi's importance and they all agreed that she couldn't die, but how was Naruto supposed to beat this? It was like something only a Kage could handle. "Oi Tsunade, we're going to be coming up soon. Be ready for what you might see," A said, and Tsunade just nodded. She was still very worried for Naruto, but she had tried to mask it. The sight of Naruto's dead body had unnerved her a little bit, but he came back just like he said that he would. He was the reason that she came back and became the Hokage, the real reason why she put up with so much shit in the village. Tsunade really didn't know what she would have done or how she would have explained to Jiraiya that this was happening. As everyone raced to the site, they were all shocked as over their heads, a large purple portal appeared. The Jikuyugami? Kushina thought. They passed under it, and it was then that everyone noticed a large wave of energy escape the portal and slam into the mountains behind them as it exploded. "Get down!" A ordered, and everyone quickly landed and hid behind the mountaintops. Sasuke grabbed Yuna and held her close to the ground. Kushina clung to Yuri and Yura while Mikoto, Yugao and Kakashi braced against the wall as the light from the explosion covered their forms. It soon began to dispel as everyone saw the landscape, or lack thereof. The Kumo shinobi gasped at the destruction behind them. How can this guy really survive this long against that type of power? Karui thought in awe. Samui and Omoi glanced to each other before nodding. Reikage Dano, we have to hurry to the scene, Tsunade said, assessing the damage. This fight was more than what she thought it was. She didn't expect for this to happen. She might have expected for Naruto to use Kyuubi's chakra to at least a tail or two, but to use all 9 was insane. However, the part that amazed her was that he was controlling them well. The first time Tsunade had allowed Naruto to train with Kyuubi's chakra so long as he had someone with him. He could only go up to 6. How did he jump to 9? Something had happened as Kyuubi and Naruto were in total sync with each other. It was amazing. She's right. Everyone, let's get going. A said, and they raced off. Back with B and Naruto, Hachibi and B remained silent as they stared at Naruto, who was standing on a mountaintop. The blonde panted heavily as he held his hand out. He just barely made it in time. The blonde fell to one knee and coughed. He hadn't planned on using this much Honshu and his body wasn't used to the new developments. From Pakura and Dan's vision, Naruto could see the 2 angles from Hachibi before he heard the 8 tails shout. Naruto didn't have the time to react as one tail slammed into his body. The blonde coughed and slammed into the side of the mountains. B grinned at his accomplishment, but it didn't last long as in Naruto's place was a scroll. The blonde swerved to B's side and quickly held his hand into the air. Honshu, Raisin Shuriken, Naruto shouted as he threw the large spiraling disc against B's body. B guard against it. Hachibi shouted and B did indeed guard as the spiraling disc slammed into his body. It exploded against him in a large flash of light as B's bijou body fell to the water. Naruto grinned at his accomplishment, but he noticed more of B's tails go his way. Naruto, using Kyuubi's manifested tails, jumped on them and launched himself into the air high, the orange sky of the sunset masking his form. B looked up and covered his eyes before he saw Naruto throw 3 seal tags to 3 separate locations. Oi 9. You won't get me with that. I can dodge it 'cause I'm so fat. B shouted as he moved to get out of the way from what Naruto was going to do. Oh, you're going to stay there and you will like it. Naruto's voice rang and B looked down as white chains came from the ground and wrapped around his body. B struggled against them while 2 Naruto clones went to each seal and he went to the third one. Fuin Jutsu, Sanho Fuin, Sealing Jutsu, Triangle Seal, Naruto shouted and a large triangle of light formed around B's body. Naruto slammed his hands together and a wave of lightning poured from his seals and electrocuted Hachibi. The 8 tails moaned to the hurt as Naruto struggled to maintain the structure of the seal. B fell to the ground and Naruto stopped the seal. He looked up at B's fallen form and he noticed that his eyes were getting blurry. He tilted left and then right. He tried to stay upright. There and finished. How do you like that, Teikoasan? Naruto asked as he tried to control his breathing. It was only then did Naruto see Hachibi's form fade from view. He figured that he had won and it was finally over. Naruto leaned and fell to the ground. I'm not down, and if I am then there will be a frown. Bakayaro, Kanayaro. Naruto heard B proclaim and the summoner of Shin looked up before he was slammed in the throat again. Rariato, B shouted and Naruto skidded across the ground. His neck was sore and he could feel Kyuubi hastily repairing his body. It made him happy and Naruto noticed B looking over him. There is no need to fight anymore. We're done, he said, but Naruto struggled to his feet and shook his head. No, I'm not done. I won't let Kamachi-chan die. I'll beat you. Naruto said and B watched as the 9 tails wrapped around Naruto and his mini Kyuubi form took shape. His growling was low and he hissed at B. Naruto opened his mouth and B gasped as he backed away. Bijudama, Naruto shouted and launched the massive wave of chakra, Yoki, and Honshu at B. Kurabi quickly dodged it, but he was surprised as it blasted away and destroyed the mountains behind him. I won't let her die. She's family, Naruto said, and B widened his eyes behind his sunglasses. Naruto's skeletal figure appeared behind him while Kurabi's appeared on his left arm. The two charged at each other and both slammed into the other as a heavy explosion came over the field. Mindscape Naruto looked left and right as he had been pulled somewhere. It was dark, but for some reason he could find his way around the place. He had been fighting intensely with B, and before he knew it he was here. Where am I? Naruto wondered to himself. You are in a place where we meet. It is us that will know each other's feet, B said, and Naruto turned then seemed more than a little surprised. B was sitting on top of Hachibi's head looking down at him. So I finally meet Kurama's container in person. You are almost not what I expected, Hachibi said, and Naruto raised an eyebrow. Who the hell is Kurama? Naruto asked before he heard a snarl behind him. It's my name, brat. Right in front of you is Gyuki. We were all pulled in here for some reason, Kyubi said, getting a nod from Naruto. The blonde turned back around and he noticed B jump to the ground. He held out his fist to Naruto, getting the blonde to raise an eyebrow. Yo, this is how we say hello. Through this fight I have seen your skills and you are amazing, bro, B said, and Naruto shook his head. It's not me. I have Kyubi by my side. He's not the total jackass that he used to be, Naruto said, and he jumped in the air to avoid a tail swipe from Kurama. How about you fuck off, brat? Kyubi growled, and Naruto smiled, getting a snort as Kyubi turned his head from his container. Well, pleasant things aside, Kurama, what happened with those 3 tails of yours? Gyuki asked. B looked at what his bijou was talking about and, upon closer inspection, could see 3 of Kyubi's 9 tails as pure white as they swished in the air. It is none of your concern, Gyuki. I'm just reaping a few of the benefits of my jailer is all, Kyubi said, and Naruto folded his arms. Ah, come on, Fox. I thought we were past the whole jailer-prisoner relationship. That hurt, Naruto sniffled while Kyubi rolled his eyes. See what I have to put up with? Kyubi asked, and Gyuki snorted. It could obviously be seen by Naruto that the two bijou had more than a little animosity towards each other. Naruto didn't know if he would find out about it later from Kyubi, but he supposed that since they were acting rational then it was alright for the moment. So, why are we in here? Naruto asked, and Gyuki turned his eyes to the blonde. Your power source, what is it? It's not chakra anymore, and I feel Kyubi's own chakra mixing with it. It's overtaking his and turning it to fill his body. Boy, that power, what is it? Gyuki asked, getting a frown from Naruto and Kyubi. Kurama looked to his partner and Naruto looked at the ground. It's complicated, Naruto said. B and Gyuki raised their eyebrows, but both knew about village secrets so they didn't try to probe anymore. Then do you know that prisoner? B asked, and the slight shiver that he noticed from Naruto had answered his question. Yes, well, not directly. I know her because she's family. She's an Uzumaki, Naruto said to them. Hachibi didn't seem disturbed and neither did B. Naruto couldn't tell since B's glasses were covering up everything, but he could read that their chakra was excited. And that guy with the blonde hair, Shursan, is one also, Naruto said. Now that news getting a reaction out of B as he tapped his fingers to his arms. The Uzumaki blood will rise. It has been found in mock friends before my eyes, B said. He then looked up at Kyubi, who was still locked behind his seal. Naruto, in order for you and Kyubi to have what Hachibi and I have, you need to put more trust into Kyubi. Kyubi, you also need to be more trusting of Naruto. You've seen what he can do. Naruto and Kyubi stayed silent and glanced at each other. They both snorted and broke the gaze, but a grin appeared between them both. It does explain why Shur was so good at seals then. He was an orphan who didn't know his parents. He was able to go to the academy because he, at a young age, was able to do, from memory, an entire book on sealing in front of the academy instructors, Hachibi reasoned. B and Naruto nodded to that reasoning. So 9, what is your dream? You've got to have one or you'll never be done. Bakayaro. Kanayaro. B said, and Naruto smiled. Yeah, my dreams changed. At first I wanted to be the Hokage of Konoha, but before I do that I'm going to reunite the Uzumaki clan. I want my family to know that its relatives are still alive everywhere, Naruto said, and B grinned while he held up his fist again. We'll be seeing you again, you fool. Stay on your path and you won't be a tool, B said with a grin. Naruto nodded and held up his fist. Both bumped and the scape faded out. Outside, the Kyumo forces and Heineken dropped to the ground and everyone looked around frantically for Naruto and B as there was an immediate drop in chakra levels. Do you see them? Yugao asked, but everyone shook their heads. It took a bit of time, but everyone saw a shadow emerging from behind the mountains. They glanced and they all noticed B, and around his shoulders was an unconscious Naruto. His Heineken clothes were ragged and ripped, showing a portion of his bare chest. Naruto's use of his honshu had run him more than a little dry. It had taken him quite a lot of it to force a Jikuyugami to help him escape from B's attack. Even using that Bijudama that he had done was extensive. Kyubi was probably the only thing that had kept him awake and conscious until this point. Everyone took in B's attire and they could honestly say that the Hachibi Jinchuriki had definitely seen better days. His glasses were cracked, his flak jacket torn to where it couldn't even go over his one arm anymore. People could see a large claw mark across his chest as well as the torn parts of his pants. 9 and I fought, but this win is one that I bought, B said. Tsunade and Heineken sighed sadly, but no one could stop the small smiles on their faces. Naruto had far exceeded what they had thought he was capable of. However, everyone noticed that there were no cheers for B or boos for Naruto. There were only moderate claps for them. The Kyumo shinobi clapped for both Jinchuriki while they bashed B over the head. You went too far, idiot brother. A shouted, and the Kyumo shinobi sweat dropped at the scene. Kushina took her son from B and gently laid him against the ground. His still breathing was apparent as his yellow hair blowed in the breeze of the wind. Sochi, you were amazing, Kushina said mentally. Kakashi gave an eye smile while Yugao gleamed proudly. Mikoto and Sasuke nodded while Yura and Yuna seemed to respect the blonde even more than before. Kushina, take him to the hospital. I'll work on him, Tsunade said, and Kushina nodded. Kakashi took Naruto and placed him on his back while Sasuke strapped the blonde's sword and sheath, that he left back at the stadium, to his waist. He stepped back and Kakashi stepped through the crowd. Tsunade-sama, allow us to help you, a few Kyumo medics said to her. Tsunade agreed and they walked off. As they walked through, Shur got a good look at Naruto. His eyes showing genuine interest in the blonde. He was by far no Konoha dog that Shur had ever encountered before. He was a bona fide shinobi and Shur at least respected that much. His eyes trailed the blonde's body before they rested on Naruto's left arm. Shur widened his eyes at what he saw as Naruto's body passed him. He looked back as Kakashi took Naruto away through the crowd. Now Shur really had to see him, now more than ever. Unknown to him, Samui, Atsui, Omoi and Karui had seen the same thing and they tensed when they saw it. No doubt they would be seeing Naruto later also. Soon the crowds dispersed and people went back to their normal duties. A Kyumo shinobi had told Kamachi the details of the fight and Kamachi just nodded and accepted her fate. She didn't care about her death. She would just die without really knowing anything, but she was happy that she got to meet someone like Naruto. A Kyumo jonin grabbed her arms and guided her away from the platform and to the dark stairs below. A little time later A assembled his council and, with Mabui by his side, called them to order. Everyone was already frantic enough from what they had seen. Not to mention that it was late and they were all just a little tired. Reikage-sama, what was the deal with today? I thought you had agreed to the Konoha Treaty ever since Akatsuki took Yujito, a man said, and he placed one of his arms on his table. That is right, I did, but as I have shown all of you, we have a traitor in Kyumo, A said, and a long silence ensued between all of the council members. Mabui tried to pick out suspicious emotions from them all, but no one was giving anything away, which either told her that they were experienced in something like this or they really didn't know what he was talking about. Why, you're kidding, right? Someone asked, but the glare that A sent them effectively shut them all up quickly. Do I look like I'm kidding? This can't be handled lightly. The prisoner has claimed that they was to meet up with someone in this village and messages have been sent to and from our location, A said, and everyone remained quiet. Did she say who it was? The councilwoman asked. A glanced towards her and he remembered her instantly. Her name was Akiko Rei. She was much older than him, as she was around during the time of the Sandame Reikage. She had a lot of influence with the village and the field of commerce. I had always found her to be shifty, but she was never one to be called a traitor. Akiko's loyalty was always to her country. He narrowed his eyes and shook his head. No, they didn't. We're in the dark as much as possible, but I'm increasing security around the village. Also, Kyumo will rendezvous with Konoha near Kuni and will gather up information on Akatsuki, A said, and everyone agreed. Akiko got a smirk across her face as they dismissed the council. They all left, leaving A and Mabui alone. Do you know who it is? A asked with a smile on his face. Mabui nodded with a bow of her head. To think that Akiko-sama would be the one to be the traitor. Why would she plan a coup? Mabui asked, but A shook his head. I have no idea, but she's protected at least until I find appropriate evidence. So how did you come to the same conclusion I did? A asked, and Mabui blinked and held a finger in the air. Well, you just kept saying the prisoners said they had to meet up with the traitor. You never gave a gender, and Akiko-sama said she, Mabui said, getting a nod from A. He stood up and both walked out of the office. 2 days later, hospital room. Naruto opened his eyes and looked at the whitish-gray ceiling in front of him. He groaned, then looked to his left. He saw his Heineken clothes on a chair along with his sword. He didn't remember much. He had collided and he passed out from the strain of Honshu mixed with Yoki. His body was accustomed to just going full throttle like that. He had desired so much to win that he overexerted his limits, and even then he still couldn't beat B. Naruto's eyes then widened in realization as he shot up. Kamachi. Naruto uttered before cursing as he touched his chest. He could see the many bandages wrapped around it, but Naruto ignored it. He got to his feet and quickly lunged for the door. He struggled against the pain. He twisted the knob, but he was surprised as the door opened to reveal his mother. Sochi, you're awake, Kushina said with a smile, but she was surprised as Naruto grabbed her arms. Kamachi-chan. What happened to Kamachi-chan? Naruto asked, and Kushina could see the hurt in his eyes at his possible failure. She slowly took his hands and Naruto could feel his mother telling him to relax. Naruto did so and Kushina cleared her throat. She's fine, Sochi. We can't see her at the moment, but as soon as you're healed and Konoha is out of sight from Kyumo's village, then they'll make the exchange. It match was a success. You did fine. We're still keeping the treaty and Kamachi isn't going to die. Sochi, it was a plan of ours. She was never meant to die, Kushina said, and Naruto widened his eyes as Kushina told him everything. Naruto took it all in and sat on his bed. A traitor in Kyumo who is working with Danzo? Man, how long was I out? Naruto wondered while Kushina sat next to him. Do you understand now? Kushina asked and Naruto nodded. He relaxed at the feeling that Kamachi's life wasn't in danger. You know, you're still the talk of the village at this moment. No doubt you made an impression on everyone. I'm so proud of you, Kushina said, and Naruto blushed from her praise before Kushina pressed her lips to her son's cheek in a quick kiss. Stay here and rest. You've been cleared to leave tonight. We've already packed our things. I'll be checking on you later, Kushina said, and Naruto just nodded as he watched her get up and leave. Naruto leaned against his bed and looked up at the ceiling. He held his hand in front of him and he closed his eyes. The new abilities that he had unlocked were really working out for him. It had freaked him the hell out when he could see from Pakura and Dan's vision. Along with his abilities, he found that he could now summon them from his sword without needing the sword in his hands. He could see what they saw and could react accordingly. It was rather strange for an ability. Not like I won't master it though, Naruto thought and chuckled to himself before he thought of something else. Yo Kurama, you alright? Naruto asked and Kyuubi opened his eye. Oh yeah, just fucking peachy brat. Although I do feel strange, Kyuubi said, and Naruto raised an eyebrow. How? So? He asked and Kyuubi raised his tails into the air. I feel complete, for lack of a better term. I don't know why, but I feel like the half of my chakra that you bastard father sealed from me is returning, or at least this Honshu thing is replacing it entirely. I don't know, Kyuubi said, and Naruto just blinked. He then shrugged his shoulders and let the silence invade the room. Well, that was until he heard a knock on the door. The person behind it didn't wait for his reply as they opened the door. Naruto turned his head and he narrowed his eyes as he noticed Shur come through and close the door. He walked up to Naruto's bed and just looked at the blonde. Going to tell me how much you hate me now? I'm just a Konoha dog, aren't I? Naruto asked. Shur didn't reply to Naruto's words. He could tell that those words were his fault, but he would talk about them later. I didn't come to you because of that, Shur said, and Naruto raised an eyebrow to him while Shur slowly took off his wrist guards. He slowly dropped them to the ground and held up the swirl symbol on his hand to Naruto. I saw this on your body 2 days ago. What does this thing mean? Shur asked. Naruto just narrowed his eyes and sighed. No rest for the weary. Somewhere else in a dark room that was just illuminated with light, Tobi opened his eyes and got up off a table. He stood to his feet and grabbed his Akatsuki cloak. Right next to him was Zetsu. The plant man watched as he picked up his orange mask and placed it on his face. The operation was a success, Madara-sama, Zetsu said while his dark half snorted. Tobi walked up towards a mirror and looked at his left hand, his new left hand. He held it up and moved his fingertips, then his whole fingers. He moved his arm and firmly delivered a punch to the wall. Where did you find this? Tobi asked and Zetsu smirked. Now where would the fun be if I told you that? Why don't you give it a try? Zetsu asked and Tobi glared at Zetsu, his Sharingan blazing furiously. He turned back and looked at the door's room. He opened it and walked out. Zetsu watched Madara leave the room just as quickly as he had come in and couldn't stop the grin on his face. I only stitched it together in 2 days. It's a magnificent piece of work. Don't you think? White Zetsu asked and Black Zetsu narrowed his eye. That's right. It's all for the sake of the plan. We couldn't keep him armless, could we? Black Zetsu asked and White Zetsu shook his head before the whole of them dropped into the ground. As they dropped there was only one thought. This will be much fun indeed. Shur waited for Naruto to explain, and while he knew that he shouldn't be disturbing the blonde while he was recuperating, he still had his curiosity and it wasn't leaving him alone at all. Seeing the tattoo on Naruto's arm 2 days ago had all but confirmed it. Shur wasn't sure if he was the only one in Kumo with this tattoo, but he wanted his answers and he hoped that Naruto wouldn't go against him for his former prejudice. Having watched the blonde fight, Shur had a new-founding respect for, not just Konoha Shinobi, but also for Shinobi in general. It had been something of a revelation for the young blonde. Shur watched Naruto close his eyes and leaned his body back into the bed. He shifted slightly to get comfortable and finally Naruto opened his eyes. He turned and saw Shur sit down next to him. He glared at Shur's tattoo and cleared his throat. Many thoughts went through Naruto's head as he wondered how Shur would react to this, but he would just have to wing it. That's how he worked anyway. You asked me what that seal is, right? Naruto asked. Shur nodded and the blonde sighed. How long was it that you had that tattoo? Naruto asked and Shur thought he was dodging the question, but Shur was the one who wanted answers and if Naruto could provide them then he would answer the questions if Naruto wanted them so badly. I've had it for maybe 4 months now, Shur said and Naruto's head raised slightly in the air. He nodded and turned to Shur. If that's the case then you'll have me to thank for that, Naruto said and he noticed Shur narrow his eyes. He shifted in his seat slightly, but stayed silent and Naruto felt that he was going the blonde the time to explain so Naruto wouldn't keep him waiting. He nodded to Shur answering his unasked question and fidgeted. 4 months ago. My Ka-chan and I were on a private mission to the lost village, Uzushiogakure. It's the home of the Uzumaki clan. There we found multiple things that related to the village's history. One of the things that it had inside was a vault. Inside that vault was a book. However, the book wasn't the problem. If I'm right, then the vault that I opened had alerted every Uzumaki in the world. Anyone with Uzumaki blood in their veins is going to have that seal, Naruto said and Shur widened his eyes. He grabbed the edges of Naruto's bed, but the blonde didn't seem intimidated by the act. Are you trying to tell me that I'm, Shur gasped as Naruto nodded before he could finish. Naruto turned to Shur and, with absolute conviction, spoke. Shur-san, you are an Uzumaki. You have Uzumaki blood in your veins like me. We're related, Naruto said and Shur shivered. Many thoughts that had suddenly come into his head. He felt his legs go weak even though he was sitting down. Thoughts of his orphan life had invaded his thoughts. No one had ever known who his parents were. He had been found by the Sandaime Raikage just before his death. He was taken to Kumo and might have been considered a war orphan. Shur never knew his parents. He hardly even remembered their faces. Both stayed silent and suddenly Shur lunged for Naruto. The blonde did nothing to stop it, though he could have, and watched as Shur gripped the collar of his clothes. Makes sense. There is no way I could be an Uzumaki. They were wiped out by the combined effort of the villages. By Kiri, Iwa and Kumo. They wouldn't do something like that. Shur said and Naruto closed his eyes. They did. I remember having a talk with Teikowasan about it. He said that you were an orphan. He said that you, at a young age, could decipher seals that even the teachers didn't know about. What they considered intricate was child's play for you. When a teacher asked you about it, you said, I can feel the seals talking to me. It was written off as they thought you were just a temporary Fuinjutsu prodigy, but I know what I'm talking about. Because of my stunted growth I couldn't hear the seals either. But now I hear it clearly. You're a part of a sensor and barrier division, aren't you? Naruto asked and Shur paused. He wasn't sure if he should be delivering his position to an opposing shinobi, but they did have an alliance now and trust was needed so Shur would do that. He nodded and calmly let go of Naruto's collar allowing for its messiness to fall. Shur sat back down and sighed. I am a part of the sensor division. I'm the best sensor in this village. What are you getting at? Shur asked and Naruto smiled. Ka-chan told me that there are a few Uzumaki who are exceptional. They are known as being the best sensors. I have only met one of them. Her name is Karen Uzumaki. She's actually back at Uzushio helping us out, Naruto said and Shur narrowed his eyes. He slowly nodded and Naruto smiled. It wasn't that I found them easy or something. I couldn't replicate them on paper, but if someone did then I could just instantly take it apart and I knew what it was meant for. I thought I was weird for it so I masked it. Even Raikage-sama doesn't know about it. It does make sense, Sure said, placing a finger to his chin. Naruto raised an eyebrow and Sure turned back to him. He shook his head of some thoughts. He then turned back to Naruto. He noticed the fellow blonde's piercing gaze and couldn't hold it. As he did that, a lone thought came into his head and Sure felt his blood run cold. Wait, if that's true that I am then the prisoner in the cells is, Naruto nodded and Sure dropped his head. He was brought back to the things he said, the things he did to her just to get Kamachi to talk. Sure felt sick suddenly. He seemed to turn pale. He was more than ready to puke, but a hand from Naruto distracted him. It's best not to think about that at the moment. You were doing your job. I was told by Ka-chan. I guess I can't fault you for such a thing. However, you have to be more aware of who you're interrogating. Nothing can change what you've done and you can only apologize and hope that she forgives you. I still haven't even told Kamachi-chan that she's an Uzumaki, Naruto said and Sure just looked down. All those things I did. I called her bitch, whore, slut, anything that a person would call a prisoner. I beat her till she was ready to pass out. Who does that to their family? Saying that I didn't know doesn't make that any better. I even did it when she lost her memory. What does she think I am now? Sure asked and Naruto wasn't sure how to answer that. He just watched Sure's inner turmoil and smiled. At the end of the day, all you can do is say sorry. It might not be enough, but it's a start somewhere, Naruto said and Sure looked up at him. He frowned, but he couldn't refute what Naruto had just told him. He silently nodded and got up. He spun on his heel and opened the door. Thank you Naruto-san, Sure said. He needed some time to think. Naruto just nodded and waved goodbye to him with the friendliest smile he could muster. Sure quickly left allowing Naruto to think. As Sure opened the door, he turned his head and was surprised to see Samui looking at him, her cold eyes as relentless as ever. You were listening, Sure said and while it wasn't a question, Samui did nod anyway. Sure sighed and placed a palm to his face then shook his head. Can I trust you won't tell anyone until I do? Samui nodded and she watched as Sure was about to walk off, but she stopped him and grabbed his hand. Sure turned around and Samui clutched a part of her body. Those 4 months. The same thing happened to myself and Atsui. It wasn't cool. The next morning after that night, Karui and Omoi told us about the same thing. I had seen you acting weird on a few occasions. You would sit at cafes and just stare at your hand for periods of time. I could never figure it out, Samui said, getting Sure to narrow his eyes. That's right, the 4 of you are orphans as well. You were all a part of Reikage-sama's orphan relief program. He picked all the war orphans and allowed for parents to adopt them hoping that they would serve Kyumo as shinobi. Most didn't meet the qualifications, but the 4 of you did. Samui, you were the Rookie of the Year. Because you were also the Rookie of the Year, it was decided that there would be 2 girls on your team instead of 2 boys as the Rookie of the Year and Top Kunoichi were different titles. Karui was the Kunoichi of the Year and Omoi was her half-brother. It's why you guys argue so much. It was assumed that their mother had a red-haired mother, but 2 different fathers. Wait, are you telling me that? Sure stopped as Samui folded her arms under her bust. Karui never showed an application for seals, but Omoi did. When we were young and with our squad, he always seemed interested in working on things like sealing scrolls for a number of odd reasons. If all of this is the case then, Sure placed a finger to chin and Samui did the same. Then Karui's probably a latent sensor. I don't know. Either way, now that I know my last name and a bit of my past I'm going to do something about it. It doesn't change who we are, but it does change my way of thinking. Are you going to tell them? Sure asked and Samui nodded. Sure nodded also and walked away. Reikage-sama is going to have a fit, but it can't be helped. I shudder to think how they will take it, Sure said and he noticed Samui had gone silent. He looked at her and could see her eyes looking at Naruto's door. He sighed and shook his head. He patted her shoulder, getting her attention. Family or not, we are still shinobi of Kumo. I don't know if you would want to go with them or not, but you'll have to discuss it with Reikage-sama first. Though I guess if we're Uzumaki then that means that we're related too, Sure said, trying a smile. Samui just sighed and, with a nod, walked away. Her face told him all he wanted to know, and Sure felt the same. While he might have been older to the point that seeing most things he could be fine with, but hearing about family for Kami knows how long they had been alive, and not being able to speak so freely with them. It hurt a little inside. Sure walked away and made his way towards the prison. It was time to at least try for some forgiveness. Unknown to the two, someone had heard the conversation between them and they slipped away completely unnoticed. They weren't sure if Sure had heard them or felt them or not, but they got what they wanted to hear for the most part. Reikage Mansion, what do you mean Akiko is gone? A shouted, getting a flinch from a man named Amai. He gulped as they slammed the desk, getting Tsunade, Mabui, Darui, and Mikoto go curse. It's what I said, Reikage-sama. She is nowhere to be found. We're not sure to where she disappeared to, but we have found 3 of our umbu dead near her compound. No one knows where she is. It's likely that she disappeared into the night while we were tending to Uzumaki-san and Kurabi-sama, Amai said, getting a growl. She realized that she had messed up and quickly left. It's too much to scour the entire region to look for her. We don't even know how many shinobi she had under her thumb. This isn't good, Mabui said, getting everyone else to nod. That's not the only bad part. She also knows that we know, and she's going to be a lot more cautious. It's also not like we can make her a missing nin since she is just a civilian. Reikage-sama, if she does have shinobi employed in her service then she knows the workings of our village. Reikage-sama, if she sells this to an enemy then, Tsunade patted Darui's shoulder, getting him to stop. Everyone turned to her and Tsunade shook her head. She wouldn't do that. Against you or not, she thinks that she's doing Kumo a favor. Remember, this is a coup. She's not going to give away information that could potentially make her vulnerable if she thinks that she's got a shot. Naturally she's dealing with Danzo, so that means either one of two things. 1. She doesn't have shinobi of Kumo in her service. Mabui and Darui seemed relieved at that, but they also noted the grave expression on Tsunade's face as she held up another finger. Or 2. Danzo and her have a deal to manage route that it extends to the forces of Kumo as well as Konoha. If that's right then Danzo and Akiko could have spies and accomplices in Suna, Iwa, and even Kiri, Tsunade said, causing frowns between those in the room. Everyone glanced to each other and they punched his table, breaking it much to Mabui and Darui's grief. Is there nothing we can do? Asked, getting a thinking poses from everyone. Suddenly Mikoto widened her eyes and stepped forward. Actually, there might be something that we can do. However, I would have to ask cooperation from Reikage-sama as well as Tsunade, she said, getting everyone to look at her strangely. What are you saying, Mikoto? Tsunade asked. Mikoto could see the faces of confusion etched on everyone's faces. In truth, her plan had a very low probability of working, but if it did then it would bring about substantial results. What I'm saying, Hokage-sama, is that Akiko-san has been in contact with Danzo. No doubt that she knows that Kumo knows, or at least suspects her, then she's going to go back to Danzo. Where we don't know. The only person that is going to know her location is Kamachi, Tsunade said, piecing it together, getting Mikoto to nod. Everyone glanced to each other. They all stayed silent, but the medic in Tsunade took over her body and she shook her head. While she knew that this was a great chance, for it to happen like this wasn't a very good thing on Kamachi's mind. Over the 2 days of Naruto's recovery, Tsunade had been trying to treat Kamachi while all the same having her take sessions with Kushina about her memories. It had been harder than they thought. Kamachi only knew the things that Danzo had told her. Coincidentally, she was a favorite of his shinobi, but why would Danzo not want to get back the one that even he held recognition for? Kushina was by no means an interrogator, much less to her own kin. She only managed to ever get a few things out of Kamachi, but as everyone suspected, Danzo's Juinjutsu had all but stopped Kamachi from saying anything. Also, Tsunade figured that subconsciously her body was restricting her speak. It's risky, I know, but if we could piece where Akiko is, then that would make it much better to figure out where Danzo is, Mikoto said with spite that everyone noticed. Tsunade sighed and shook her head, standing by her decision. Kamachi is already a valuable witness. Also, her mind has already been messed with. That's why I'm putting you in charge of everything concerning her. Kushina wouldn't want to give her any more trouble than she already would, Tsunade said, and Mikoto sat down. Then I'm kinda out of ideas, Mikoto said, and everyone looked at the ground solemnly. Mikoto sighed deeply and looked at her hands. She looked, and looked, and looked until... I've got it, Mikoto said, jumping up quickly. Everyone turned to her in surprise, but they saw Mikoto blush as she tried to tone down her excitement, but everyone could see that it was impossible at the moment. She patted Tsunade on the shoulder while a smile adorned the matriarch Uchiha's face. Tsunade, we need Naruto when he's healed, Mikoto said, and Tsunade raised an eyebrow. Mikoto pointed to herself fervently, and Tsunade gasped. She nodded while leaving the Kyumo shinobi in the dark. Mind filling us in? Darui asked, getting Tsunade and Mikoto to calm down. Both nodded fast that they did mind, which irked the Kyumo shinobi, but Tsunade composed herself. Reikage Dano, if I'm right about this, then we'll have enough to convict Akiko and Danzo at the same time. However, in order for this to be successful, then we're going to have to ask for a little something from you, Tsunade said, getting A to narrow his eyes, but he did nod. He didn't know what was going on, but he'd allow it for now. With Naruto having had Sure leave his room, Naruto looked up at the ceiling and closed his eyes. He brought his time back to the fight with B. Specifically two things, the new ability that he unlocked, as well as him and Kyubi trying to bring the 10-to-6 ratio for the Shukenugami. As Naruto had expected, they weren't going to be getting the jutsu down as they had hoped. They were in too much of a hurry for it to work. Naruto knew that his clones weren't going to be a match for B's full Jinchuriki form. Naruto couldn't even concentrate enough to make them explode like he had intentionally wanted. He had used his chains, and Kyubi's manifested tails to help him in forming the shape, but it wasn't working out as he might have wanted. Well, that's what he got when he rushed things. After that, then there was that weird feeling that he got from Pakura and Dan. By channeling Honshu through his eyes, he was able to see what Pakura and Dan saw. It was like he was looking in front of him with his own eyes and then through the eyes of the two of them. It had really been rather strained on his head to keep that up, but Naruto couldn't deny that it was useful. He'd just have to get used to training with them like that. It had been through this that he was able to at least get a hint of warning before anything else. It was a great spying tool. One that was so much better than his own Kage Bunshin technique. He could literally spy without ever truly being seen. Are you guys up for such a thing? Naruto asked. He had recently found that he didn't need to be holding his sword to communicate with his summons. They just responded naturally. This would have been a fucking useful ability when you were fighting the fucking one-eyed jerkwad, Taiyuya said, getting a nod from the others. However, we do not mind Shikio-sama. It actually sounds like a good idea, Pakura said, and Naruto nodded as he leaned back and closed his eyes. Alright, we'll try it out later then, Naruto said aloud. He didn't see it, but the others nodded and they quickly fell silent. Just in time too, as sound assaulted Naruto's ears, getting him to turn his head. He noticed that the door was opening and Naruto noticed Yura and Yuri come through the door. Naruto and I. Yuri suddenly shouted as she glomped on Naruto. The blonde groaned inwardly as his body was more than a little sore. He tried to lean up, but Yuri was restricting his movements. He looked up and he noticed Yuri was slightly crying on his chest. "Ni-chan, they said that you were," Yuri shivered, but she gasped as Naruto placed his hand over her red hair and stroked it. "Yuri-chan, it's alright. I'm right here. Did you see that I was still fighting?" Naruto asked and Yuri shook her head quickly. She snuggled into Naruto's chin and felt the warmth of his chest. "And no, we stayed back in the stadium with the others. When we saw you, you were unconscious." "Don't scare me like that," Yuri said and Naruto sighed. He then chuckled and pulled Yuri closer. "I'm sorry about that, Yuri." "I didn't mean to," Naruto said, getting a teary chuckle from Yuri. "Oh Ni-san," Yuri said as he quickly Naruto, much to Naruto's surprise and Yura's irritation. The older redhead growled lowly and it intensified as Naruto made no move to stop. It brought her back to the time where they had their intimate moment back at that restaurant. She watched as Naruto and Yuri moaned against each other, which got her hot also. Yura shifted in her clothes as she saw Yuri's soft hands enter the bed sheets. Yura noticed them go south and she knew that her younger sister was heading for Naruto's steadily growing hard-on. She also noticed Naruto's hands getting affectionate as he trailed them over Yuri's sides. Both moaned and Yura growled before she grabbed Yuri's shoulders. "I'm here too," she yelled as she forcefully parted Naruto and Yuri from their moment. "I called dibs, damn it. If I wasn't played into that last bet 2 days ago, then I would have still roomed with Ni-chan." "Wait your turn," Yuri said, growling. Yura snarled and was ready to tell Yuri off before both groaned as Naruto rubbed their sides. "No fighting, ladies." "I love you both," Naruto said as he quickly claimed Yura's lips. Yura moaned in Naruto's mouth and she felt her legs weak from where she was standing, so she sat down on the bed. Yuri groaned looking at the sight, but she did have hers, so she would just wait. As soon as it was getting started, everyone shivered as they turned to see Kushina folding her arms in the doorway. "Keika-chan," Naruto said dumbly. Kushina sauntered her way through the room while Yura and Yuri narrowed their eyes. Kushina glared at them both before she grabbed her son's head and pushed her lips to his own. Naruto gasped as he wondered how in all hell this was happening now. However, Kyubi was grinning like a mad schoolgirl at the sight. It was obvious that the current changing of the color of 3 of his tails did nothing against some of his pervertedness. Kushina pushed her tongue into her son's mouth and Naruto could feel his mother dominate his mouth. He groaned while Kushina moaned. She glared at Yuri and Yura, which got the 2 Uzumaki sisters to growl. Kushina backed away and licked her lips. "Sorry about that, Sochi. I figured if they were getting a treat then I could get mine also," Kushina said. "Happily." Naruto just stuttered and leaned to the bed. Kyubi cackled while Naruto sighed. "Hey, that's not fair," Yuri shouted with a growl of her voice. Kushina turned to her and smiled as she grabbed Naruto's head. "Sorry, but mother-son bonding is the most important databane. Don't you have Jinchuriki training to do?" Kushina asked and Yuri growled. "She's got a point," Sanbai said from behind his cage. "Oh, shut up you." Yuri growled and Sanbai regressed back into his cage. "Something about scary containers." Yuri growled and pouted as she folded her arms. Yura sighed while Kushina smiled triumphantly. Naruto just blinked at the interaction and closed his eyes. "This is all your fault, you know," Naruto said, getting Kyubi involved. "Excuse me? How is any of this my fault?" Kyubi asked and Naruto folded his arms. "You should do this, you should do that. Go be the little motherfucker I know you can be." "Oh Kami, that just makes it work out, doesn't it?" Naruto asked while Kyubi snorted. "Since when the hell did you start listening to me? You're the one who started feeling up your mother. Which I admit is still hot either way by my standards, but you're the one who wanted to go this far. I just pushed you to it," Kyubi said, and Naruto wanted to say something else, but didn't. He then chuckled and smiled. He looked up as he noticed Yuri, and Kushina shouting about rights and something like that. Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Naruto thought, and soon a nurse came through the door. She gulped as she noticed the Uzumaki females glaring at her. And Naruto-san is able to leave the hospital now. His vital signs check out, she said cautiously. Yuri, and Kushina calmed down as Naruto stood to his feet. Yura handed him his clothes and Naruto quickly changed. The four walked out of the room, but Naruto did with just a little more difficulty. He would be fine in a few hours or so. As they came to the receptionist desk, Naruto walked up to one of the men behind it and cleared his throat. "How is Teiko-san?" Naruto asked, getting the man to look up. "B-sama is fine. You really did a number on him. He left this morning," the man said, getting a nod from Naruto as he walked off. He quickly left the hospital and felt the refreshing air enter his nostrils. As they walked through the village, Naruto turned to his mother. He leaned next to her and whispered. "So when are we getting her?" Naruto asked, and Kushina smiled. Still concerned for others and not his general health. "Tonight," she answered, getting a nod from Naruto. He breathed easily and chuckled to himself as they walked off. With Sasuke and Yuna, Sasuke glanced towards Yuna and she just sighed as they looked at the clouds in the air just slightly above their roof. Yuna leaned against Sasuke, her black trench coat swaying to the wind while Sasuke's Heineken scarf did the same. "Are you ready to continue the search when we get back?" she asked, and Sasuke nodded. "We're going to find him." Yuna. "You told me, Ka-san told me, and now I will need Itachi to tell me." "With his own words I need to know," Sasuke said, glaring up in front of him. Yuna sighed with a nod and closed her eyes, allowing for the wind to breeze past her lovely face. Yuna looked up at the sky and smiled. "I wonder how he will react. Although he never had much personality to begin with. I know you'll find the answers that you'll search for. But Sasuke, I have to ask. Why aren't you, mad at anyone? I think you'd hate Konoha or something for what they did to your family," Yuna said, and Sasuke snorted. I really don't know. Initially I was, but what could be done about it? Forget it. I'd rather not think about it. I'd just like to restore my clan and raise it the right way," Sasuke said, and he didn't miss the blush on Yuna's face. She just folded her arms and snorted while Sasuke grabbed her waist. Yuna turned around and traced a finger through Sasuke's cheek. "When I died I never thought I would be around for something like this." "Thank you, Sasuke," Yuna said, and the two Uchiha quickly gave a short kiss. They knew they couldn't stay this way for long as they had to get packing, but they just wanted to enjoy the quiet for once. Kyumo prison. Kamachi held up her handcuffs as a guard quickly had them undone, allowing for the metal to drop to the ground with a light bang. Kamachi rubbed her wrists, allowing for a small massage to help her a little better. The guard glared at her, but Kamachi just glared right back. "Follow me," he said, and Kamachi did follow him out. They traversed the hard walls that had been Kamachi's prison for the past 2 weeks. She could hear the prisoners moaning and groaning from inside their cages as the guard brought her up the stairs. The stairs went in a spiral shape and it was made in the way that no one could really get out even if they wanted to. Why Raikage-sama is doing this I don't know. "You just better not show your face her again or you'll be dealing with me," the guard said. Kamachi said nothing, which indicated that she didn't even register the threat. She just continued to follow him up, and the guard guided Kamachi into a lone room. He pushed her through and closed the door. Kamachi didn't have to notice that the room was dark and that she couldn't see much of anything. Soon the lights flicked on and she noticed Sure behind her. Kamachi turned to face him and she wasn't sure, but she could see a heavy look of regret on his face. Sure walked up to her until he was right in front of her. She said nothing and neither did he. They just stared, and before long Sure pulled Kamachi into a light hug. Kamachi blinked and Sure casted a glare at the ground. I'm sorry, he said, and Kamachi turned back to him. She didn't know how to be advised on situation like this. She just listened to him speak. The things I did. I didn't know about you. I'm sorry for what I had done to you. For what I said to you. I shouldn't have called you a dog. Not to my family, Shur said, getting Kamachi to widen her eyes. Kamachi's life had been hard as an orphan. She didn't know her parents. She had no siblings or family. So, what was this man talking about? I do not understand, Kamachi said. Her voice was still rather raspy as she hadn't been able to eat nor drink anything for the last day. Something about her getting to eat once she was completely gone. However, out of her thoughts, she noticed Shur unattached himself and sigh. He held out his hand, getting Kamachi to look at it. As of a few hours ago. I heard it from Naruto-san. He was planning on telling you when you met with them later. I am Shur Uzumaki. Kamachi-san, the swirl tattoo on your upper chest. It signifies that you are an Uzumaki as well, Shur said, getting Kamachi to gasp. She looked down at the ground. And such a cute family member at that, Naruto said from behind the prison. I won't let you die. You're my family, Kamachi-chan, he said to her before he slipped her the note and disappeared. Kamachi fell asleep and sighed. Kamachi turned to Shur and she closed her eyes. Kamachi Uzumaki. I see, thank you for your apology. It's not your fault, Kamachi said, and in the back of her mind she knew that she was right, but so many other questions had entered her mind. Because of her fuzzy memory she only remembered her time alone, then picked up by Danzo, a few missions here and there, then she was in prison. That is no excuse, he said sorrowfully. Kamachi shook her head while she kept her face neutral. Right now, she wasn't sure if she could stand to smile at the moment. I have a mission, Shur said suddenly. Is it something to do with me? Kamachi asked and Shur straightened up. Yes. Well, it's more to do with you, Konoha and Kyumo together. I will see you later, Shur said, getting Kamachi to nod as he escorted her out of the prison and away from the eyes of civilians, Genin and Chunin. With Heineken, nighttime Naruto, Sasuke, Kushina, Kakashi, Yugao, and Mikoto, along with their companions, had finally made it out of Kyumo. It had been rather weird for Naruto only because when they left, people who just smile at him and just give him a simple hello or so. It was obvious that none of them were angry or tight-walking him like they did when Tsunade and Heineken had first arrived. As they all, and Tsunade, waited for Kamachi to arrive, Mikoto had gone over, with the others, the plan that she had wanted to have happen. They all turned to Naruto the most, and the blonde narrowed his eyes. He could see how this plan could operate and how they could get away with it, but to have it done for that very reason just seemed to be rather selfish, if not at all weird to say the last. The Kyumo shinobi wouldn't be around for another 10 or 15 minutes. That should be enough time to get this done and over with. Sochi, can you do it? Kushina asked. Naruto sighed and scratched his blonde hair. Alright, fine. I guess I'll be using 3 of those 4 free revivals that Shin gave me, Naruto said as he took out his sword. Naruto closed his eyes and quickly slammed the ground with it. Everyone watched as white fire went through the ground and 3 coffins appeared in front of everyone. They were labeled as first, second and third in kanji. Everyone waited with bated breath as Naruto knelt down on one knee. For everyone this was actually the first time that they would get to see a revival in person. Kushina, Mikoto, and Yuna felt a sense of nostalgia from the incident. I wish to revive Tayuya Uzumaki and Risa Uzumaki, her mother. I also wish to bring back one of my summons, Fujikaze. Obey the will of the Shinigami summoner, for I am a Shikyo, Naruto said as everyone gasped as fire claimed the 3 coffins. Somewhere, Shin felt power leave his body and 3 being leave his realm. It turned in the direction and nodded to himself. 3 of the 4. He's collected it well, Shin said before going back to what he was doing. The fires burned brightly, making everyone cover their eyes. Tsunade did the same, and soon the light faded. The fires burned the coffins, and they then trailed the inner forms of the kanji. The kanji lit up and the coffins showed signs of cracking. Everyone backed away while Naruto ejected his sword from the ground. Tsunade seemed amazed at the sight that was befalling her. As the coffins crumbled, everyone opened their eyes as they noticed Tayuya standing in front of them, not a day older than when she died by Temari. "Well fucking, finally!" Tayuya shouted at the top of her voice before she was slammed in the head. "Language, Tayu-chan. I did not raise my daughter to be like that, Datsun." Everyone looked and they noticed a woman standing next to Tayuya. Her red hair was just as vibrant as Kushina's. It stretched down just past her shoulders through her slender form. She had a unique age about her that just made Kakashi blush. He gulped to himself while Tayuya rubbed the bump on her head. "Fuck you, Mom. You hardly taught me shit, just like that useless dick of a father you married," Tayuya said to her. The redhead next to her growled as she glared daggers at her daughter. "You're damn right he was a dick, but only I get to say that," she said, and the two suddenly blinked as they noticed others looking at them. Tayuya blinked and so did the woman. They looked left and right before they saw Naruto standing in front of them. "Sup, shithead. Don't think that just 'cause we're family that I'm not going to try and kick your ass from time to time," Tayuya said, getting a roll of the eyes from Naruto. "Whatever. I'm now older than you. You can't do anything, shorty," Naruto said, and Tayuya growled. "Damn you, shithead." Tayuya snarled, but her lips moved upward and she chuckled to herself. Naruto chuckled as well, and everyone watched as Kushina rushed and grabbed the woman. "Risa," Kushina said, and the woman, named Risa, turned her head and chuckled. "Kushi-chan." Risa shouted as she grabbed Kushina back into a hug. Naruto blinked, as did everyone else. However, they all heard the last of the coffins crumbling. They all noticed the last person to come out. Fujikaze dropped to the ground and walked toward Naruto. Everyone could see that he was at least Kakashi's height, if not an inch or two taller. The long sword that was strapped to his waist gave him an intimidating look, but others couldn't feel a threat from him. His steely eyes concentrated on Naruto's form as he passed by Kushina, Risa, and Tayuya. He easily looked down at Naruto, and the blonde looked up. Both narrowed their eyes at each other, and everyone was shocked to see Fujikaze bow before Naruto. "My life belongs to you, Shikio-sama. Do with me what you will," he said, and Naruto smiled. "You don't really need to bow, Fujikaze. It's your life now. Do what you want with it, Databeo," Naruto said. Fujikaze looked up and nodded. He stood up and took out his sword. He quickly stabbed it in the ground and bowed again. "Very well, Shikio-sama, then I shall use my life in the service of yours." "I humbly accept this role," Fujikaze said, and Naruto sighed. He shook his head, but somewhere he was happy. Fujikaze then glanced towards Kakashi and noted the sword on his waist. He walked up to him and patted the Jonin's shoulder, getting a look from Kakashi as he dropped his book. "You are the spitting image of Tsukumo. By any chance are you his son?" Fujikaze asked, and Kakashi blinked out of surprise before he nodded, discarding his book for the occasion. "That's right. He's my father," Kakashi said, and Fujikaze nodded. "Your father had been in the land of iron before. I had the honor of fighting him. I hope that his offspring will prove an even greater challenge," Fujikaze said, and Kakashi just nodded sheepishly as Fujikaze walked away to lean against a tree. Anyway, we'll have to have this talk later. Naruto-kun, could you finish please?" Mikoto asked, and everyone stopped as they turned to Naruto. The blonde stopped talking with Tayuya and took out his sword again. "Shurkan no Mai," Naruto yelled as he quickly slammed his sword and launched a wave of Honshu. Instantly he channeled the Honshu to his eyes and he was able to see a large row of spirits in front of him. "Alright, I need those who know Danzo, Naruto shouted. Spirits looked to each other and a large file began to leave. Those who know his contacts, Naruto said, and a smaller group left, allowing for Naruto to pick. And those who have joined his organization route, Naruto called out. This left a very high number. One that Naruto seemed confused by, but ignored. He glanced through the crowds of spirits and he noticed that all of them had emotionless expressions. Naruto shook his head before glancing to one. Your name? He asked, getting the person to look up. Titaji Shikio-sama. I was a double agent of Danzo's forces, she said. Naruto nodded and he then looked next to her. Name? He asked and the young man bowed. Codename, Tara, Shikio-sama. I was a higher-up of Danzo-sama's forces, Tara said to him. Naruto nodded and quickly pulled the two into his sword. He then swung it, sending the two out. Both of you, I have a long-term mission for you. Find Danzo for me and get information. You will know his exact locations and I want you there so I can figure him out, Naruto said to them. Taji and Tara glanced to each other and they weren't sure they heard right. Shikio-sama, we do not understand. Why are you asking this of us? Tara asked in an emotionless tone. Naruto raised an eyebrow to that question, but to everyone else, except Kushina, he was talking to himself. However, no one could deny that there wasn't something powerful in the air. They could just sense it for some reason. Tara, have you ever followed Danzo before? Naruto asked and Tara shook his head. No, Shikio-sama. Where I have died I have remained until I was given the privilege to hear your call and come at your request. I have always followed Danzo-sama and while I will never go against you, I would like to know what Danzo-sama has done that you know about him. Tara asked, getting suspicious. Naruto narrowed his eyes at his presumed summon. Taji couldn't believe the audacity of the person next to her. Who did he think he was talking to? So you do not know about the last 2 years? Naruto asked. Tara shook his head, but for some reason he knew he wasn't going to like it. Tara had been trained to rid himself of emotions by Danzo through the training program. It had proved efficiency in missions, but Tara always knew that none of Danzo's training was ever 100% effective, as such controlling tactics were not as favorable as they appeared. However, that didn't mean that Tara didn't hold his former master in very high regard. I mean no disrespect, Shikio-sama, Tara apologized quickly. Naruto shook his head and sighed. He patted Tara's shoulder and looked at the sky. Tara, Taji, it's been a while, but Danzo's become a missing nin. I'm sure you know, but your faction was supposed to be disbanded. He's wanted for high treason against Bachan and Konoha. I know the both of you appreciate him, but you're going to have to put that aside. We'll do this, I want you to see for yourselves, and if you feel I'm right then you'll do the mission, Naruto said, getting Taji and Tara to nod her head. Tara looked just a little bit anxious and Naruto could tell. Be safe, he said to them. Taji looked up in surprise and so did Tara. Danzo had never told them to be safe. It felt heartwarming if they needed to give it a word. Hi Shikio-sama, they said before they quickly floated off. Naruto closed his eyes and they returned to their blue color. He turned around and glanced towards the others. He gave Mikoto and Tsunade a thumbs up, getting a smile and nod from both. It happened just in time too, as everyone felt 5 chakra signatures appear. Out from a bit of the forest came the Reikage, Shur, Darui, Mabui and Kamachi. Kamachi was still in some of her prisoner clothes, but that didn't really matter to anyone. Alright Kamachi-san, go to them, Shur said, and Kamachi looked up to see some of the members of Heineken looking at her cautiously, but she focused on Kushina and Naruto to see the two smiling at her. Kamachi slowly began to walk as she was exchanged between Kyumo and Konoha. She stood in between Naruto and Kushina while Tsunade walked up to as soon as we have reports from Inoichi we'll send them to you via messenger bird. Naturally we're keeping this confidential between our villages, but we'll keep the plan in action, right? Tsunade asked, getting A to nod his head. That is correct. Currently we show no opposition from any of the higher-ups, however it will be sort of hard to keep it under wraps for very long. For this reason we proposed a temporary team, A said, getting Tsunade to nod. Everyone raised an eyebrow as to what that meant. Tsunade turned her head and she smiled. What we've done here is that one of their shinobi is going to be a guidance to one of ours. Shur-san will be the liaison between Kyumo and Konoha along with Naruto, Tsunade said, and everyone could see why. Shur was a valued member of Kyumo and Naruto could teleport them both instantly. It would work out. So he's coming back with us? Naruto asked, but Tsunade nodded. He will be coming with us, but in the coming months then he'll return. It'll be going like this from time to time, Tsunade said, and everyone agreed. Shur walked over to the group and stood next to Naruto. We'll expect a report within 2 weeks and from there we'll go on to see what we can find, A said, and Tsunade nodded. Very well. We'll get started in 3 days on the dot, Tsunade said as everyone turned around. Tsunade nodded to Naruto and the blonde held out his hand. Jikuyugami no Jutsu, Naruto said, and the large portal opened. Tsunade and Heineken walked through. Kamachi blinked and just stared at the portal before cautiously stepping through it. Shur raised an eyebrow, but walked through it all. He waved goodbye to his friends as they disappeared. He really is, that man's son if he can do that, but I feel like he's even surpassed him in speed, Darui said, getting A to narrow his eyes. Then just stared at the blank space before Mabui coughed. Well, that aside, Reikage-sama, let us return. We have to order you a new desk and your work must still be filled out, Mabui said, and they turned around to leave. Back in Konohagakure the portal appeared just in front of the gates in Konoha. Everyone walked out of it and they chuckled as Shur dropped to the ground. That was unsettling, he said as Naruto patted his shoulder. It's always like that at first, he said, remembering his first experience. He shuddered at the thought as they showed the night shift gate guards their licenses. They had been given those licenses when escorting Tsunade out of the nation. It was a required thing, nothing they could avoid. Well, Kamachi-san, we're going to ask you for information in 3 days. Just cooperate and nothing will happen to you, okay? Tsunade asked, getting Kamachi to nod. Tsunade nodded back and yawned as she parted from the group. She had given Heineken a week's vacation since it was about that time anyway. She was totally exhausted. She just wanted to maybe have a drink and then go to sleep. Well, we'll be going off too. See you later, Mikoto, while Sasuke and Yuna left right behind her. We're going to be going too. I have to go over some things with Yugao, Kakashi said as he guided Yugao towards their Heineken house in Konoha, which was just Kakashi's house actually. As they left, the only people who were left were the Uzumaki clansmen. They all glanced to each other and Kushina patted Risa's shoulder. Let's get you home. We're going to be having a good dinner, Kushina said, and Risa's stomach growled along with Taiyuya's. My last fucking meal was more than 2 years ago. That means I haven't eaten in 728 days. Fuck, I'm hungry, Taiyuya said, and everyone heard growling as they turned to see Shur and Kamachi. The blonde female lightly blushed while Shur scratched his cheek. I didn't eat, he said, getting everyone to chuckle. Well, we'll just have to do something about that. I hope you like ramen, Shur-san. After all, it was an Uzumaki dish, Kushina said, and Shur twitched. He just bowed a thanks as he walked off. Uzumaki compound, might as well be called that. Kushina unlocked the door and opened it quickly. The others walked through it and sighed. Ah, feels good to be home, Naruto said with a large grin on his face. Everyone chuckled before they heard footsteps. They looked to the direction of the stairs and they all noticed Yukimaru coming down. Naruto-Nizan! Yukimaru shouted as he raced down the stairs. Kamachi and Shur took in the boy's appearance as Yukimaru raced into Naruto's body. The blonde coughed and rubbed his head. "Yo Yukimaru. How have you been?" Naruto asked. Yukimaru smiled while they heard more footsteps. "Yukimaru, who is it?" Fuka asked, coming down with Guren right behind her. The two Uzumaki females took in all the people and Fuka smirked. "Wow, if I had known you would have been returning I would have not been in my nightgown," Fuka said with a smile. She saw Naruto and Shur blush as they averted their gazes. Kushina glared at her son and pouted. She could flaunt a nightgown too if she wanted, or if her son wanted. "Kushina, who's the bitch?" Risa asked, and Fuka's smile twitched while Guren shook her head. The redhead walked down the stairs and walked up to Risa and held out her hand. "Fuka Uzumaki, nice to meet you," Fuka said with a smile. Risa raised an eyebrow before she grabbed the hand and shook it. Instantly Risa was flipped over and slammed into the floor, getting the wind knocked out of her. "Also, I'm not a bitch." Fuka growled and Risa glared at her. Yura and Yuri tried to calm the fighting while Shur just looked at them. This was his family. He couldn't help but laugh or smile. Shur turned her head and he noticed Kamachi just standing still. She was looking at the scene in front of her and just blinked. "Come on Ka-san, you're not going to let this motherfucker of a prostitute-looking whore beat you, are you?" Taiyuya asked, chuckling while Risa growled. "I said language, Taiyuya." Risa shouted and Taiyuya growled as they glared at each other. "Oi Kamachi-chan, get over here and help," Naruto shouted. Kamachi just blinked before she moved and intervened as well. The house was up in laughter of the family. Soon Fuka and Risa stopped as they looked at each other. They only growled for a moment before chuckling. "Now that's an Uzumaki for you," Risa said, wrapping her arm around Fuka's neck. Fuka snickered while Kushina went into the kitchen and quickly turned on the stove and placed a pot over it. "Now no more fighting, Databane. We're all going to eat," Kushina said, and Taiyuya snorted. "Isn't it too late to be fucking eating?" Taiyuya asked. Naruto snorted and patted her back. "Hey, you're the one who said she was hungry. Isn't that right, Tomato-chan?" Naruto asked, and he noticed Taiyuya growl at him. "Da fuck do you just call me, you shit?" Taiyuya shouted. Both saw Kushina smiling as she held a butcher knife. "I said no more fighting," she growled as she punched the wall, leaving an indent. Naruto and Taiyuya inched away and nodded, causing Guren and Risa to laugh. Everyone sat down and Kushina placed a pot over the stove. "Good, now then, we're all going to relax like a true family and we're going to eat our clan's national dish," Kushina said, getting Guren and Fuka tilt their heads to the side. Yukimaru and Yuri licked their lips, and so did Naruto and Taiyuya. Risa and Yura tried to maintain some elegance. Shur and Kamachi sat together as they tried to get used to this free atmosphere. What is an Uzumaki national dish?" Yukimaru asked, and he noticed Naruto's eyes sparkle. Risa's did also, and so did Kushina's, and Yura's. They each chuckled and rubbed their heads. "Why, only the best food that has ever been made in the whole freakin' world, Yukimaru. You haven't lived until you've tried Ka-chan's ramen," Naruto said, practically drooling. Shur chuckled at the sight and shook his head. Kamachi offered a small smile also. After quite a while, Kushina placed hot bowls of ramen in front of everyone and they all looked at it. The smell assaulted their noses and Fuka took her chopsticks. "I think this stuff is horribly fattening, but whatever. I'll just train it off," Fuka said as she took a load of noodles and placed them in her mouth. She instantly stiffened as everyone waited for her reaction. She trembled and shivered. Her hair shadowed her eyes as everyone looked at their noodles. She looked up and she swallowed them. So good. It's like it was made from the highest food order of the world. So good," Fuka said, and quickly eat her food. Naruto grinned widely and clapped his hands. "Ita de Kimasu," he said as he and his mother dove into their food also. Soon it all kicked off as Risa and Taiyuya followed. Yura and Yuri after them. Shure and Kamachi looked at their food and so did Guren. "Guren-ne, try it. It's really good," Yukimaru said smiling. Guren blinked at him and sighed as she tasted the noodles. "Oh dear Kami. What is this?" Guren thought with an inner grin on her face. Kamachi took a piece of food and tasted it. Shure seemed to be waiting on her reaction and Kamachi's eyebrow twitched. It was good. Very, very good. It put the food that Kamachi used to eat to shame as she took another bite. "It is pleasant," she said, getting smiles from everyone. Shure took in the food and smiled to the delight of the noodles as well. Naruto stopped eating as he looked around the table. Kushina and Risa were laughing at each other while Taiyuya was talking with Yura. Yuri was laughing along with Yukimaru. Shure and Kamachi were eating peacefully and the blonde smiled. How long had he longed for something like this? He looked down at his food and a lone tear fell down his face. "Sochi, what's wrong?" Kushina asked, getting everyone to stop as they looked towards the blonde. 13 years of loneliness caught up with Naruto as the blonde chuckled. "For the longest time this was how I wondered if a family would ask. Sit down together, eat, argue. I never thought I was going to get this. I'm just happy Databeo," Naruto said, and everyone fell silent. They looked at their food and some had to agree. For Kamachi, she'd still be in prison, most likely dead, or alone without ever knowing something like this. Without knowing what she was and who had cared for her. She wouldn't have this. She probably wouldn't be known as Kamachi Uzumaki. She'd just be Kamachi, Root Umbu sub-commander for Danzo. It was pleasant. For Yura and Yuri, they wouldn't have this home or this life. They would have been caught. They wouldn't know their Uzumaki brother or other family. They wouldn't be able to gather around like this. They wouldn't have a lover like Naruto with them. They were happy. For sure, he would have still hated Kamachi. He wouldn't be surrounded by family members that Naruto had shown him. He hadn't known them long at all, but that didn't matter. It also didn't matter to Shure that they were in Konoha. They were a part of his family history. He might not know his parents, but that wouldn't stop him from ever feeling happy that he had asked Naruto about his tattoo. For Taiyuya and Risa, they wouldn't even be here. They wouldn't be eating and they wouldn't be having the fun that they were having now. Both would still be dead, roaming the afterlife with nothing to do. They were grateful to their Shikyo for Guren and Yukimaru. They might still be together, but they don't know how they would feel. Guren wouldn't have other friends. She wouldn't have found such a great use for her Shoten. She couldn't see Yukimaru participating in the academy and growing like she knew he would. Yukimaru wouldn't have her as a friend and sister, or mother if he preferred. He wouldn't be friends with Konohamaru, Moegi, Udon or Hanabi. He wouldn't be here. They were more than happy. They were ecstatic. For Fuka, for all she knew, she might be dead. She would still be in that ridiculous plot by her former leader. Heck, if she lived, she would be in prison trying to scrap by for anything. She really didn't want to know how her life would have changed. It was all from her dear cousin. Well, and his smexy lips too. For Kushina, she wouldn't have had the full chance to apologize. She wouldn't be around to see her son become the man that he was right now. She wouldn't meet with all these other lost Uzumaki that had been around the nations. Her son wouldn't have the things that he did now. She wouldn't have found a lover in her son that loved her just as much as his father. She wouldn't be as strong as she felt. She wasn't sure, but Kushina knew that she couldn't ever be prouder, happier, or more thankful for anything. Now that she thought about it, this all happened because of Sasuke Uchiha. Everyone thought about their reasons and smiled. We're all here now, Yura said, getting everyone to nod in agreement with her. That's right, we also have Uzushiogakure. We have enough members to be an official clan. But whether we're a clan or not, we're Uzumaki, right? Guren asked, and everyone nodded, even Sure and Kamachi. That's right. We're fucking Uzumaki. No one can mess with us. Tayuya exclaimed. Everyone nodded and Guren kissed Yukimaru's forehead. It doesn't matter if you're full-blooded, half-blooded, or even related to us. Yukimaru, you're an Uzumaki just like us, Guren said, and Yukimaru shook his head happily. Nicely said, Guren, Tayuya. We're all here and it doesn't matter how. However, I have to say, Risa said as she stood before her nephew. She grabbed Naruto into a hug, getting the others to smile. Sorry you were alone. Sorry you had so many sleepless nights. We're not going anywhere this time, she said, and Naruto just nodded. I know you aren't. 'Cause I'm going to protect us all, Naruto returned. They all just nodded and everyone finished their food. The dishes were washed and the living room was vacant. Everyone went to sleep peacefully that night, more so than they had ever been in their entire lives. In the family room, furniture was pushed out of the way and futons were placed down. Everyone slept together just that one time. It was the best time that they had together. It was late. Naruto opened his eyes as he heard light snoring. He turned his head and he noticed Kamachi was gone. The blonde widened his eyes before he looked up and down the house. He exited outside and looked up to see Kamachi on the rooftops. She was looking at the moon with a longing look. Naruto raised an eyebrow before he quickly hopped up and stood behind her. It's late, you know, Naruto said, and Kamachi turned to show Naruto her face. She closed her eyes and looked back at the moon. Sorry. This is a habit, Kamachi said, and Naruto sat next to her. He looked at the moon also. For him, it resembled his eyes when he used Honshu or something like that. He chuckled and Kamachi turned to him. Thank you, she said, and Naruto shook his head. Nothing I wouldn't do over for you, Naruto said, and he stiffened as Kamachi leaned to his shoulder and closed her eyes. She wouldn't mind cooperating with whoever they had her to in Konoha. If only she could keep this warmth, then that would be fine for her. Kamachi stiffened as she felt Naruto's hand on her shoulder. She just shifted to accommodate it and slept. Naruto smiled and looked up at the moon. He couldn't help it now. Next afternoon, Hokage Mansion. Yes, so everything for your clan is in order. Here are your papers, your bank statements, and the land that you are allowed, which is added by the rights of the Namikaze compound. You ask that you wish to change the name of the Namikaze compound to the Uzumaki compound effective immediately. Alright, what is the clan that you would like to associate yourselves with? Tsunade asked as Kushina collected the papers. We would like to be formally, and informally, associated with Hyuga clan and Inazuka clan. I have the statements from both clan heads to agree, Kushina said, and Tsunade nodded. She shifted some papers around and wrote on some documents. She nodded a few more times. Very well, your clan head? Tsunade asked, and Kushina pointed to herself. Tsunade raised an eyebrow while Kushina gleamed. Are you sure about this? She asked, and Kushina nodded. Yeah, I'm the only one who can do it. Naturally, Sochi will more than likely take that spot in a few years or so. I just figure that I'll run it until he has a better grasp of responsibilities, Kushina said, getting a chuckle from Tsunade. You know, Kushina, for you to assume full head status you must also find a suitor. The only reason Tsum doesn't need to is because she was married once and has had enough to secure her place. You don't, however, Tsunade said, and Kushina blushed. She looked at the ground and muttered to herself. She smiled when she thought about it. Maybe soon it would be time to them to come out. Yura and Yuri already knew, so what was the point of doing anything else? That won't be a problem, she said, and Tsunade just shrugged her shoulders. Alright, you are the clan head and the brat is the heir to the Uzumaki clan. Your seat on the council is placed next to Hayashi-san, Tsunade affirmed. Kushina smiled as Tsunade handed her the documents. Keep in mind that you're still a member of Heineken, so I have no doubt that you'll be busy, Tsunade said, and Kushina smiled. Oh, I don't think that will be a problem either, Kushina said as she created a clone to carry some documents. Tsunade widened her eyes as Kushina gave a short laugh then left. She left Tsunade speechless as the blonde Kage growled. She looked at the picture of Minato and Sarutobi on the wall. Fuck. Both of you. To hell, she shouted mentally. She also stared in confusion as Sarutobi smiled and Minato chuckled. Outside, Kushina walked through Konoha with her documents in hand as she made her way back home. By this time, Naruto should be teaching Yuri to handle more of Sanbai's chakra and get her coils used to the power. Kushina would also begin teaching the others about seals. Thankfully she had Risa, her sister-in-law, for that. Risa was a very good sealer. She was young just like Kushina when they were attacked, but she was proficient. Kushina knew at least that much. As she walked through the village carrying her documents, Kushina paused as she saw Hayashi walking up to her. Hayashi-san, nice to see you on this fine day, Kushina said politely. Hayashi nodded as a small smile adorned his face. That it is, Kushina-san. It's nice to see you. So has it all been filled out? Hayashi asked and Kushina nodded. She held up the documents and Hayashi looked them over. He nodded and handed them back. I hope to be good friends with you, Hayashi said, and Kushina nodded with a bow of her own head. Which is why I would like to ask for the Uzumaki clan to come to the Hyuga clan for dinner next week, Hayashi said, getting Kushina to tilt her head. I see no problems with that. We shall collect ourselves to your house next week. Thank you, Hayashi-san, Kushina said, getting Hayashi to nod as he walked away. Kushina smiled and did also. Uzumaki compound. Kushina came up to the door and opened it. She immediately heard fighting in the back as she saw Yuri and Naruto in a small taijutsu fight. In the house, on the floor, were pieces of paper as Risa was instructing Shur and Taiyuya into seals. Kamachi seemed to be talking to Yukimaru and Fujikaze about swords while Guren, Yura, and Fuka were talking about something related to elemental seals that they had discovered in the library. Alright everyone, we have full clan status, Kushina said, waving her papers around. The Uzumaki family grinned and gave a thumbs up. There wasn't many of them, but it was enough to be considered a clan in their own right. Also, we're having a dinner with the Hyuga clan next week, so everyone prepare for it, Kushina said as the others nodded. Alright Yuri-chan, now that we've warmed up, now is the time for you to start sealing. I'll leave this clone with you for a little bit. I won't be long, Naruto said, and Yuri nodded happily as she watched Naruto leave. Alright then Yuri-chan, let's get started, the Naruto clone said, and Yuri nodded. Hi Naruto nii, Yuri said to him as the two sat down. Meanwhile, Naruto entered into the forest and took out his sword. Kuchi-os no jutsu, Shurkan no mai, Naruto shouted as he slammed his hand on the ground. He sent out a wave of Honshu through the ground and air as three figures came in front of him. Names, Naruto said. Since losing Fujikaze as one of the summons that he had to keep in his sword, Naruto need others. Since going up another level by Shin, then Naruto's capacity to hold in his sword increased from 5 to 6. He only had Pakura, Kimimaro and Dan. None of them really cared about being revived. They actually liked being spirits better, but now Naruto had 3 more to work with. My name is Gari, Shikio-sama. I was from Iwagakure, the man said. He wore the standard IWA flak jacket and his spiky hair was even more apparent than Naruto's. The blonde smiled as he turned to the next person. I am Yahiko Shikio-sama. I was from Amigakure, he said, and Naruto narrowed his eyes while he looked at the man named Yahiko. He had short spiky orange hair and brown eyes. He wore a long black robe with a red line running down the center along with armor that covered only his midsection with a pouch attached to it. He also carried a relatively large sword on his back. Yahiko from Amage Cure. Nice to meet you, Naruto said, and Yahiko bowed a little lower. Naruto then turned his head and glared. Your name? He asked, and the person bowed. She offered a smile and straightened herself. I am Swearin Shikio-sama. I am at your humble service. I am from Kirigakure, she said to him. Naruto nodded again as he learned about them. Gaki was a person of Iwa's explosion core. Swearin was a water-release-style woman who knew a better form of kenjutsu. Yahiko, much to Naruto's irritation, said that he was the leader of Akatsuki, or at least its former leader. He had asked why Naruto was so angry with him, and Naruto was more than happy to tell him, needless to say, but this involved Naruto apologizing and Yahiko to be very, very surprised. He looked down at the ground in shame. And no, that's not what I envisioned, Yahiko said before he looked up at Naruto. Shikio-sama, please take me as a summon. I vow to use my abilities to your service and let me find the person responsible for this, Yahiko said, and Naruto nodded. Very well. How about you, Gari, Swearin? Will you help me as well with Pakura, Dan and Kimimaro? Naruto asked. Hi Shikio-sama. They said, and they all went into the blonde sword. Naruto sheathed the sword and smiled. However, he wanted to see Jiraiya. Something wasn't adding up here. Lightning Country Akiko snarled as she slammed her desk. She looked left and right as she noticed her subordinates around the room. Those who ranged from Kyumo Shinobi, to missing Nin, directly to Shinobi from other nations. Damn it, how did they find out? Danzo, this is all your fault. Now I have to be more discreet than ever. Well, fortunately I still have an ace up my sleeve. No doubt that old Warhawk does too, or he wouldn't have lasted this long in the world. Let's see, what can I do that will bring the plans together? Akiko wondered as she looked at her fireplace. She saw the fires cackle left and right, and before long she widened her eyes and smiled. I think I might just have an idea on what to do here. Akira, bring me Kabuto-san, Akiko said, and the man named Akira bowed before he quickly spun on his heel and left. Just as he left, someone else came to the ground with a mask from Root. Akiko smiled and walked up to him. Danzo had better be weary, for I even have spies in his organization. Isn't that right, Tawa? Akiko asked to the emotionless Umbu. Tawa just looked at the elderly councilwoman while she propped one foot over the other. So much strength, but not the mind to even go through with it. You want to try and kill me, don't you? Akiko asked. Tawa remained emotionless and did nothing while Akiko chuckled. She shook her head and stood to her feet. Well, whatever, you aren't following me to talk. Tell me, Tawa, do you miss Kamachi? Akiko asked, and Tawa closed his eyes behind his mask. No, Akiko-sama, he said, and Akiko nodded. I see. Very good. Then you are to go kill her immediately. Also, when you're done, be sure to bring her body back to me. I don't care how you do it, she said, and Tawa bowed before quickly leaving. Akiko smiled, and the fire behind her intensified her gaze. Don't worry, Danzo, I'll take good care of everything. Just like I've always done. After all, who can resist an elderly woman's pains? Akiko asked it nothing before she got up and left. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. Guys, make sure to help the author by visiting the link in the description. This is Fox Sage, and I'm signing off.